okay? The crossbow nerf needed to fucking happen.
Guess what? The devs are not listening to the important.
What's wrong with the crossbow? Absolutely nothing, you fucking jackass. They haven't touched it in 5 years, and they don't need to. I don't think they've changed it at all in any way or form.
Shit. They're not listening to the AK being shit and the AK sight.
Yeah, because the AK is entirely overpowered.
It's actually being off a little bit. If you were to put the AK iron sights true dead center of the screen, put a dot in your middle of the screen.
They always talk about recoil like this, like they get stuck on it. They're like, the recoil, the recoil. Yeah, it's recoil. It's not like getting wedged against walls for 25 fucking years. It's recoil. It's not as clear of a problem as that, you know? It's recoil.
Center. Little shit like that to me isn't.
I could see people bitching about Bloom for the first like 3 years of Fortnite. That's about the last time I thought it was cool to bitch about recoil.
Important. The reason I'm saying fuck you, Face Punch, is I'm mocking the community. I'm mocking how people are fucking acting.
Now they're probably feeling pretty bad about how they kind of like, you know, legitimized you.
Community every time they do an update.
This is why I say don't let me in the same room as these developers. I'll tear them a new asshole, right? And that's why I don't want bridges with the community. I don't want bridges with the fucking developers. I don't care if I don't make if I make way less money because of that. I don't care. I don't want to be around those people. I think that some of them are so despicable for letting some of the quality of life sit how it sat for as long as it did at like Blizzard and, you know, like he's saying at Face Punch and stuff. Some of that quality of life sat for too long, but some of it wasn't their fault. Like for instance, Face Punch's engine is not their fault. That recoil thing, that is not their fault. That is Unity.
Rhino Crunch also ignited
the recoil thing is Unity. It's a fork of a Unity source engine. It's not too good.
Other prominent Rust creators like Beach Hills, Sir Winter, and Vertigo, specifically over their perspectives.
It's not too good.
These conflicts significantly tarnished Rhino Crunch's reputation. Alienated from both the developers and fellow content creators, Rhino Crunch eventually withdrew from the Rust community. This time, unlike past controversies, Rhino Crunch didn't backtrack on his actions.
And this is why I'm across like 6 different communities. You couldn't say I'm a Final Fantasy 11. You could say I'm a Final Fantasy 11 player, but that would be like doing some dishonor to EVE Online. You could say I'm EVE Online pilot, but that would be, you know, dishonoring the fact that I'm a Rust player or a Fortnite player and a fucking World of Warcraft player. And all you idiots sit on 1 or 2 titles and stuff, and I'm here sitting on New World across like 6 or 8 fucking titles and shit. And it's like, yeah, man, I don't represent Face Punch or Rust, nor would I ever want to. You guys seem to want to pick one thing and champion it as your personal fucking god. And trust me, I like that song, Your Own Personal Jesus by fucking Depeche Mode as much as anybody else. And I get having your own personal Jesus in terms of a game, but my life is just not, I do not have that luxury. I do not have that luxury to focus on one fucking game and yell at one fucking developer. Now, when I visit their fucking game, I do. You better fucking believe it. Because the quality of life over the last 25 years has been fucking abysmal. It's a valid complaint. Looking at the storage in ESO will sicken you. When you understand how much money it is. Looking at the fucking storage in WoW between 2010 and 2023 will sicken you. Looking at the Unity engine on a bad computer like Rust, like the Rust engine on a bad computer, will sicken you when you see it. It sickens you when you see what they consider quality of life. Looking at the 50 boxes that I have to deal with in Final Fantasy 11, it'll sicken you when you see it. When you understand that I have to deal with 14 different boxes with 80 slots each, and you're like, what the fuck? Why? You know, you see some of the quality of life, and you're like, no. My complaints are fucking valid. This guy is trying to torch a single title because he's played it too long. And that's the difference. I was valid about Rust, and you know what? Helk was out there. I was valid when I made my complaints about the Rust engine, and sure enough, within a year, I pissed off some Rust kids with that. I don't give a flying fuck. Within a year, Helk's sitting up there doing a Twitter, fucking talking a tweet, talking about how fucking he'll never touch the Unity engine ever again. And I was like, I told you so. I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so.
Leading many to speculate that his career might be.
And all those kids fought me on that. They're like, Russ is fine. You're fucking full of shit. Your computer sucks. And it's like, no, something's really wrong. I didn't know how to say Unity back then. Now I do. Something's really wrong with that engine. We all knew it. You knew it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I've had time to reflect in this past month, and boy, have I learned a lot about myself. You see, a guy who doesn't give a fuck doesn't really give a fuck. He sure as hell doesn't take dislikes on
Jesus
videos
Christ,
personally.
dude, you had hundreds of thousands of follows. How much money is that? And you took that and squandered that on this hate? Come on, man. The minute that I would ever reach like 10,000 subs, you better believe I'm never talking shit again. You know what I'm saying? One of the reasons I talk so much shit right now is I have like 2 to 5 fucking viewership if I'm lucky, and I love it. I fucking love it. I'll talk shit about anything I fucking care about. You reach 10,000 subs, you shut the fuck up. That's not your money anymore. That's not your time. That is not your life. That is 10,000 fucking subs. It's like, you know, it's 5 times 10,000 is $50,000. At that point, you are being paid a living wage to play a game, and you don't sit there and talk shit about it all day. You don't. That's something that you do when you're down here at my level with 5pop and you don't care about your reputation right now. That's when you get all the vitriol and hatred of the quality of life over the last 10 years out, you know, or 20 years. Like that's when you get it out. You don't do it when you have 270,000 fucking followers. They're going to cancel you. They're going to cancel you. Oh, you can't pay for it. You're a broke boy. Oh, brokey or whatever. Look what they did to her. I mean, they didn't cancel her, but it came close. They were going to cancel her. You know what I'm saying? You can't act like that when you have that much. Like, trust me, I'm down here talking shit, and I know it's a struggle to get past 5 fucking pop at any given goddamn time of day, even holidays and shit. And trust me, I know why. It's because I'm fucking negative and screaming all the fucking time. But see, what people might not really understand is this is that time that I'm allowed to do that. I'm like okay, you know what it reminds me of? I can't play the fucking song, but there's a song that I really, really took homage for a lot when I came to my streaming career called Pots and Pans in the Kitchen. Right? Pots and Pans by Hobson, right? And it's like, you gonna let me play the pans in the kitchen, mama? I'm gonna play the fucking pans in the kitchen, mama. And that's my reality too. I'm down here like Hobson, fucking screaming at these fucking developers about their quality of life. This guy's pissed off about recoil. Fucking recoil. Who the fuck gives a shit about recoil when you deal with 27 years of fucking digital serfdom and 30 bags and bad quality of life and disconnects and fucking, you know, who the fuck cares about recoil and triple beaming fools? I'm sorry, but your weird, uptight, PvP, angry reality is so far from me. I got an angry reality like you, but I'm down here trying to primal screen it all out while I don't have an audience to lose. You guys hit 200,000, you start screaming at fucking face punch. You think that's a good look for somebody who's making a living off this? I don't think so. Cancel him.
Mindless fucking comments left on the goddamn internet.
It's biting the hand that feeds. Like, trust me, I can do it because I'm 5pop. You know what I'm saying? I'm 5pop on a 5pop fucking server. Trust me, I can talk shit all goddamn day. No one's gonna give a flying fuck. No one's gonna cancel me. When I reach 10,000, I'm not talking shit anymore. Not happening. Nope. Anybody with a fucking clue shuts their fucking mouth. Trust me.
Videos for that matter.
So trust me, I'm down here screaming for a fucking reason, and if I get to go the whole 100 years doing this, or whatever, the whole 50 years screaming like this, then even better. I could use a good primal scream for like 50 fucking years after what the system and all these other people have done to me. Like, I have no shame about who I am or what I've gone to be. Most of the times when I say things, it's like really because I fucking mean it, you know? And like most of the time, like, you know, like, you know, like I have a reason for being this angry or trying to fix something or a complaint that I have or some problem that I have. Look at what I had to do to get solid frame rates on these games. It's just insane. And so, yeah, I'll bitch about Windows. Yeah. Is bitching about Windows new?
Only a matter of time before all the guns turn into tickling machines if they continue to lean towards accessibility, aka appealing to the masses. The majority of players that couldn't build a fucking 2x2 and survive for more than 30 minutes, then the heart and soul of Rust is gone. It's shit for guys like me and you, though. We get to watch a game's gunplay change more than Caitlyn Jenner's favorite sex position.
Why are you taking this sexist, fucked up, basically homophobic, fucking weird, slurred, fucking like incel, right wing, fucking deep web 4chan stab at Caitlyn Jenner during your fucking face punch hate video, you fucking moron.
Position where raiding could be strong-armed without explosives, and if you built like a role player, you got wrecked like a role player. But then again, why the fuck do I care? I'm just a big fucking pussy anyway, right?
With diminished
Did they call you a pussy? I think you're calling yourself that. And if the shoe fits.
Rust content and a drop in viewership.
I don't like this guy. And I don't think this guy doing the video likes this guy either. And I don't like this guy. I didn't know about him, but I know about him now. I don't like this guy. He reminds me of... I can't think of anybody. No, I can't think of anything. I don't watch that many streamers.
Certain. However, Rhino Crunch resiliently pushed forward, pioneering content in emerging games like PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, Escape from Tarkov, and eventually Fortnite. Rhino Crunch seemed to recognize a pattern. Controversies, while challenging, did not spell the end for his channel. Instead, they presented opportunities to transition to new games,
and attack those developers too.
A trusted, influential content creator, appealing to both viewers and game developers alike. With Fortnite's impressive rise and mass appeal, Rhino Crunch again found himself on an upwards trajectory, experiencing exponential growth. However, just as things appeared to be stabilizing, another turn of events was on the horizon.
I've been in jail for the past... No, I'm just kidding. I haven't been in jail.
Oh, he was just kidding.
No, he wasn't.
Or was he?
Or was he? No, he wasn't.
Because apparently, a guy with the same exact name as Rhino Crunch got arrested for sex penetration force?
Rhino Crunch was reported to be arrested.
It was rape? I thought it would have been fucking pedo bear shit. Pedophilia shit.
But the details following the initial reports were scarce,
God.
leaving the circumstances of his arrest shrouded in mystery.
Did this psycho rape somebody? Come on. What was it? It's gonna be some fucking dumb. What is it? It's gonna be something dumb.
Surprisingly, this revelation had a minimal impact on his channel's performance, possibly due to the lack of concrete information regarding the arrest. However, the event profoundly affected Rhino Crunch on a personal level. Once notorious for his explicit language and relentless critique of companies and fellow creators, Rhino Crunch experienced a dramatic shift in character. In the ensuing months, he abandoned his use of profanity and ceased his criticism.
Uh-oh. Yeah, you got busted for rape and you don't want to get canceled.
Instead, he turned towards sharing religious teachings, focusing on insights about the Bible and Jesus Christ.
The trash always takes themselves out. The trash always takes themselves out. That one really stuck with me. That's Taylor Swift, and she's right. You don't have to go fighting the KYGO country jock who grabs your fucking ass on international television and shit and sue them for $1 billion and then drop it for $1. That KYGO fucking jackass, fucking toxic masculinity piece of shit, right-wing fucking incel asshole grabbing people's asses and shit like this, right? Fucking on, like, grabbing Taylor Swift's ass like that's not gonna get you canceled and shit. Yeah, and she went after him, and she got him too. But in the end, she's starting to say stuff lately like the trash will take themselves out. You don't have to go fucking fight them. And I'm starting to really believe it. I think if they're fundamentally really crazy and flawed and fucked up and shit, they're gonna sink themselves long before you need to. It's like they're like basically a car crash waiting to happen. And sure, you could go pop a tire and try to get the car to flip over the fucking overpass, but they'll probably just crash the car themselves. You don't really need to go do anything.
Plausible that Rhino Crunch's shift towards creating content for a Christian gaming channel was strategically aimed at engaging his younger audience.
Oh, come on. You went from rape to a Christian gaming channel? Did you hear the hand slap on the forehead? The fucking literal hand slap on the forehead? Did you hear it? Did you hear it? My mic's really close. Oh.
And their parents.
Welcome to my Christian stream, guys. I used to scream about how the face punch people were pussies to their face, but now it's a Christian stream, and I didn't rape anybody, guys.
But Rhino Crunch truly believed in his
Fuck's
preaching,
sake.
so much in fact where it began to take up a substantial portion of his videos. As he navigated the expanding Fortnite scene, Rhino Crunch formed a close friendship with a fellow streamer named Dakotas. Both enjoyed a surge in popularity due to Fortnite. However, in 2018, they abruptly ceased playing together, leaving fans curious about the sudden change. Rhino Crunch later made comments about the situation, which unknown to many at the time, would mark the beginning of the decline of his career.
Unknown at the time.
You know what I mean? True story about Rhino Crunch. The reason why me and Rhino Crunch stopped playing together is because Rhino...
Because you practiced with the homies, and you didn't practice with the homies anymore.
tried to force me to talk about God in my...
Sorry, that's a Russ joke. It's a Russ joke.
But I wouldn't do it.
You guys don't practice with the homies anymore? I'm sorry. Aw, you guys seem like you had so much fun practicing Russ with the homies. Do you guys practice with the homies?
Where you said you wanted to do a charity stream and pocket it. Ooh!
Dakotas leveled a
Charity
serious
stream and
accusation
pocketed.
against Rhino Crunch, alleging that he had plotted a charity scam targeting his audience.
Why do they always do charity scams when they're like these fucking two-faced schizo assholes? Like, why? Why is this the case? It's just crazy. It's just why? Ooh, Nuka-Cola Twist. Yeah, that's always a really good thing. Okay, so yeah, we're going into Fallout 76, but mainly I want to open this thing. Yeah, that thing. And I want to pop Fallout 76 to the other thing. Give me this thing. Just give me that. No, give me that. Yeah, no. Wait, give me that. Wait, did you open 2? I'll just close it then if you did. Oh, did you open 2? No. Just, yeah, just give me this. Yeah, no, you can't, huh? Okay, we'll close it. It's alright. When you need to make changes, it's kind of glitchy, but it runs. It does what it's supposed to do. It's awesome. Get it gone, though, now. Yeah, get that gone now. That's good. Run it again. Good, and I want you to put Fallout 76, right? Yeah. And then, let's see how 76 runs on the OBS. I think it looks okay, sort of. I don't know, it looks okay, I guess. We'll go in and see how it feels with all these other clients running and everything. Seems that, see how it goes. All right, let's go hear about this charity scam.
Ended due to Rhino
Why do they always do charity scams as they exit?
Crunch's insistence on preaching to his viewers.
Guys, I do so much work for charity. That's just something you'll never hear out of my mouth. I guess I will be a philanthropist if I ever have any money. But I won't be like, oh, I gotta work for a charity, guys. That's not something you'll ever hear me say.
This allegation cast Rhino Crunch in a negative light, leading to a distancing by other Fortnite creators and a waning interest from his fan base. Rhino Crunch, true to his form, doubled down on his stance without issuing a formal apology.
No matter what the devil's got going on in the works, and no matter who he's using to
No matter
try
what the
to
devil does,
discredit me,
blah, blah, blah.
or falsely accuse against me, or
You're a
make up
rapist,
lies
dude.
about me, or rumors about me, or whatever
You're a
he can
rapist,
try to
dude.
do,
I'm fairly sure.
At the end of the day,
I saw the
God's
court document.
righteousness is all that matters, and I'm being tried by God. This is a test.
I don't know
He
about
gradually
that.
shifted his focus from gaming to
Oh, no,
religion.
this is
Attempts
bad,
to revisit
so-
his gaming roots through Escape from Tarkov, The Rise of Scum, and even a return to Rust were made, but the tide had turned, his influence had waned, and his ability to serve as a valuable promoter for gaming companies had diminished. By 2020, Rhino Crunch had significantly reduced the religious content in his videos, but the change came too late to reverse his fortunes. He was unable to reclaim the prominent position he once held in the gaming community, leading to his official retirement in 2022. By 2023, Rhino Crunch had transitioned away from his online persona, focusing on personal matters. Facing potential tax evasion issues with the IRS, he shifted his attention to his family and a new career as a personal trainer, making a significant shift from his previous life as an online celebrity. Now the question remains, did Rhino Crunch deserve his fate? Those sympathetic to Rhino Crunch might argue that his intentions were always in the right place. He called out companies he deemed suspicious, and he seemed genuinely invested in improving the games that he covered. His criticisms of DayZ, Rust, and Fortnite, in hindsight, do hold some value. DayZ standalone faced prolonged delays and neglect, Rust underwent controversial changes, and Fortnite's complexity alienated some players. His turn towards religion, in his view, was meant to positively influence his audience's lives. But those critical of Rhino Crunch could make the claim he was a hypocrite, as he often condemned the actions of others that he himself would later mirror. If Rhino Crunch had managed to keep his ego in check, it's plausible he could have made a successful return to games like Rust, DayZ, or Fortnite, provided he had left these communities in a more professional manner. Additionally, some
Or
argue that Rhino
he might be a rapist and maybe he should have been canceled.
Crunch used his newfound religious focus as justification for his
God
publication.
will get him out of that
Success
that
for Rhino
just
Crunch
sex
left
charge.
Many developers likely reduced their willingness to engage and connect with their player base and other content creators. Love or hate him, Rhino Crunch's role in popularizing the survival game genre cannot be overlooked, and he will likely be remembered as one of the most controversial figures in its history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Wait, that was a good one. What was that? Unity versus Rust? I want to see that one. Where did that go? Unity versus Rust. Where did it go? I saw something good there. I want to see it. Unity versus Rust. Unity versus Rust. Unity versus Rust. Developer evacuation. Yeah, this is from 3 months ago. Yep. I watched this one. It's a good one.
Leading their game on January 1st. Holy shit.
So they're literally losing money with more installs. It's tragic. Like, it's unbelievable.
Unity, the world's largest game engine, once held in high regard for its contributions to popular titles like Rust, Pokemon Go, and Among Us, has developers and players in fear for what's to come. Indie studios could be destroyed, finished games could be prevented from release, and development for many games could come to a grinding halt. What does this uncertainty mean for the future of Rust and the possible release of Rust 2?
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
2020, Unity took a significant step forward for the company, its initial public offering, attracting investments from individuals and companies, successfully raising over $41 billion. Many hoped this success could lead the company to greater developments, especially for Rust, a game that had relied on Unity's engine since its start in 2013. Unfortunately, Unity's fortunes took a downturn as the years followed. Its share price, which had reached a peak of $196 in 2021, plummeted to nearly $36 a share as of September of 2023, representing an astounding 80% decline. What caused such a dramatic fall from grace? Ultimately, the responsibility falls on their chief executive officer, John Rosatello, who wields significant influence over the company's decisions, for better and worse. Since taking the helm in 2014, and without the pressure of being a publicly traded entity, his ideas and actions carried greater weight in 2020. Many of his actions would go to ruin this software company's reputation.
6 hours into playing Battlefield, and you run out of ammo in your clip, and we ask you for $1 to reload. You're really not very price sensitive at that point in time.
Rusatello's salary
Oh
took a
my
staggering
God.
160% increase following the IPO, reaching $22 million a year. With all this extra capital, he would go to acquire Weta, the studio behind Avatar and Lord of the Rings, for $1.62 billion, and Parsec Cloud Tech Stream Company for $320 million in 2021. For many, this suggested a trend of expansion for the company. Instead of increasing their workforce, the company took another path by laying off over 200 employees, contradicting Rusatello's earlier assurance that there would be no layoffs at Unity. To make matters worse, he would go to make comments during an interview with Pocket Gamer, where he labeled developers critical of monetization as some of the biggest idiots, which only tarnished the company's reputation further. Unity's image suffered as they continued to make bad choices for their users.
He said
and
idiots, by the way.
such as acquiring a malware company called IronSource, a service blacklisted on Windows by
Malware
Microsoft,
company?
registered as a threat on
Oh my
Virus
God.
leading many to believe that this acquisition would push more unwanted monetization practices on its users. This resulted in a 13% loss in stock value on that day. On May 11th of
On that day.
2022, the company's shares hit a new low of $40 and a 37% loss of the company value. This price range persisted throughout much of 2023 due to the company's weak revenue outlook. It's clear that a series of questionable decisions have negatively impacted shareholders and the company's stock price. Unity and John Rusatello felt the pressure from investors. They needed to do something, and fast. But the ship was sinking. Maybe it was time to get a life vest and get out. Their actions over September of 2023 prove that this might be the case. Shamal Dovra, a Unity board director, sold 68,454 shares on August 30th for around $2.5 million. Unity's president of growth, Tomir Barzi, would also sell 37,500 shares for $1.4 million. Unity CEO John Rusatello was doing the same over 2023. Having sold over 50,610 shares, would go to unload another 2,000 personal shares on September 6th for around $78,000. This brings us to the tragic events of September 12th of 2023, when Unity unveiled their latest planned pricing and packaging update. This update would introduce their newly established fee system called the Unity Runtime Fee, where developers and development studios would now be charged a fee for every install past a certain threshold, but would only be charged once per install on that device. To illustrate this with Rust as an example, if Facebook
Oh no,
Studios
did it do
used
my...
Unity's engine
Wait,
and
now
received
it's...
100,000 downloads,
Now it's
they would
better
incur a
for some
charge of
reason. Why is it better now?
$12,500. While this amount might appear relatively small compared to FacePunch's 2021 earnings of $96 million, there's a critical distinction to note. This fee is not per purchase, but per installation. In other words, every time a new device installed Rust, Unity would impose this fee. This means that malicious individuals could potentially exploit this system by replicating installations if they were first-time installations on new devices. Given FacePunch's efforts to combat cheating and shut down profitable cheating companies, these bad actors now have the opportunity to retaliate against FacePunch, potentially even bankrupting Rust through these exploitive practices. Unfortunately, Rust is not the only victim of these changes, such as Innersloth from Among Us, Loon Studios for RimWorld,
Among
Niantic
Us,
for Pokemon
RimWorld,
Go.
Unity fucked the entire world. I got so mad at the Rust engine in my 4 years that I was playing it. I get so mad I would scream at it some nights. It would just drop you, disconnect you, and fucking crash and frame rate loss and shit. I didn't know how bad it was. I had 16 gigs of RAM, good DDR4 RAM, but I mean, it was only 16 gigs of RAM, but that game needs 64. It won't run well without it.
Could face similar challenges due to the Unity runtime system. Understandably, many individuals, specifically Gary Newman, the founder of Rust and FacePunch Studios, expressed their rightful frustration in his article titled, "Unity Can Get Fucked," stating, "Let me be clear,
Very
the
good.
cost isn't a big issue to us. If everything worked out and the tracking was flawless and it was 10p per sale, no biggie, really. If that's what it costs, then that's what it cost.
Right.
But that's not why we're furious. It hurts because we didn't agree to this. We use the engine because
Yeah,
you
you
pay up
didn't ask
front
'em.
and then ship your product. We weren't told this was going to happen, we weren't warned, we weren't consulted. We had 10 years to make our own engine, and never did. I'm sure a lot of game companies are feeling the same today. Let's not make the same mistakes again. Rust 2 definitely won't be a Unity game.
Rust 2 will
Unity's
not be
decision to
Unity.
alter the terms without offering additional value to their service has exposed numerous game companies to substantial liability, and risk for a cost that Unity alone benefits from. Trust has been eroded. If Unity can do this in one update, what can they do in the next? The question is on everyone's mind. For what will happen next with Rust, and the newly mentioned Rust 2. For Facepunch, it would be a widely expensive feat to transfer to a new engine after 10 years of development for Rust on Unity, along with other companies such as Unreal Engine having high fees of 5% of any games that are sold on their service. Gary Newman has historically never taken no for an answer, and it seems Facepunch will be moving forward to make their own engine, which is where Rust 2 could come into play. But here's the concerns you could expect if they begin this transition. Bohemia Interactive, better known for their work with the Arma franchise and DayZ Standalone, which was released in 2013, started their own engine, known as Infusion. DayZ fell behind with neglected updates and features, all for the anticipated release of the Infusion engine. So why would Bohemia Interactive add in all these features when they would switch to a new engine later? It has now been 10 years, and fortunately this engine has been released as of this year, but it took a ridiculous amount of time to happen. So unless Facepunch onboards a team specific to their new engine, it's likely Rust could meet a similar fate. Less features and updates, as they now might be done with Unity, and could pull away staff to focus on making this engine as soon as possible in order to have full control in making Rust 2 happen. This is positive for Facepunch in the long term, but could be drastically negative in the short term. We do not know what will happen. We can only hope that if the terrible circumstances presented, that Facepunch can do the best they can to overcome these setbacks. For the damage, fear, and suffering Unity has put forward with their unethical business practices.
Thank you, Jack. Sorry. Thank you, Jack Shepard, for the excellent content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel.
This is me at the beginning of this video. Hi. And this is me after tons of gameplay at the end of this video. I just started playing Star Wars The Old Republic for the very first time about 10 days
Thank you, Wade Off, for the excellent content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel.
And give you some of my first impressions of this 12-year-old galactic adventure game. First, what is Star Wars The Old Republic? Not to be confused with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is an RPG set in the same universe. Star Wars The Old Republic is a free-to-play, with optional subscription, story-driven, tab-target MMORPG developed by BioWare, which was released in 2011. Since its release, the game has received 8 content expansions, taking the original level cap from 50 all the way up to 80, with many different new areas and storylines. Unfortunately, for free-to-play players, the level cap is 60, and if you want to progress further, you will have to purchase the subscription. But we'll get into more on that later. Players join as members of either of the two main factions, the Galactic Republic and the Sith Empire. Although each faction might be considered good or evil, every player is in control of their own morality through a point system that caters to the light or dark side. The game focuses very heavily on storyline, offering a vast amount of differing options from the species and class you choose all the way to the individual choices that you make in side quests. Each of these decisions actually impacting the storyline that you create for your character. I've seen this done in many RPGs before. Of course, it's quite reminiscent of the Fable Purity system. However, I've never actually seen this system utilized in an MMO before, and it's done quite well. The Old Republic also features the ability to fly your own ships and participate in space combat. 4 different modes for PvP, one that even includes the ability to PvP while being in your own ship for some serious galactic warfare, as well as war zones, a team-based domination game, and of course, arenas. Generally, in my limited experience, many games that I have played in the past which are based on an already successful franchise tend to cheap out on some of the important aspects of what can make them a good product. Whether that be a spin-off, a comic, a sequel, or in this case, a video game, because they can find success just through thriving on the franchise's already active fan base. I've never really enjoyed too many Star Wars games in the past, as I've generally been much more of a fan of fantasy rather than sci-fi. Give me shields and swords and magic and throw in a dragon or two, and that's usually my happy place. But I was excited to step a bit out of my comfort zone in this case, and I'm hoping that some of that franchisal regression doesn't affect this game or my experience in enjoying it as an MMO. Upon opening the game and creating a character, I was asked if I would like to boost that character to level 70. At this point, I had not even purchased the subscription, so I don't think this was actually available to me, but afterwards I had to choose between joining the Republic or the Sith faction. Generally, in video games, I tend to go towards the lighter side, if you will. I always played Alliance in WoW, I always tried to be the good guy, the hero, so I decided to change that up a bit and join the Edgelords over in the Sith. Each faction has 4 different completable origin stories which will dictate how the story in the game progresses for you, and each of these origin stories have a different set of classes or combat styles, as they're called, that it can play. There are 8 different combat styles for each faction, although many of them are considered to be a mirror class, so they generally have the same skill set and gameplay as a class from the other faction, just with different names and narrative direction. For example, an assassin on the Sith side would have a mirror class known as a Shadow on the Republic side. I was thoroughly impressed with how streamlined the character customization felt, from class descriptions to animations to how much you can actually customize your character. I think it's important for games to focus on this, as it's usually the first interface that your new players interact with, and when it's done properly and it feels good while giving players enough choice in terms of customization, but not too much so that they might feel overwhelmed, it can actually result in players spending a lot more time in the game than they might otherwise. Anyways, I ended up choosing the Sith Inquisitor origin story and went with the combat style of Marauder, a sort of evilish dual-wielding rogue warrior hybrid. It sounded super cool to me, and I was excited to pave my journey as a Sith and to get into some double lightsaber combat. The graphical style of the game immediately stood out to me as stylistic and somehow had a very Star Wars feel, if that makes any sense. A lot of the different zones in this game look absolutely fantastic, and I'll get more into that later, but after a quick introduction to my character's storyline, I am a slave. Great. I was then greeted with this user interface. How do I explain this? At first, I hated it. I'm not gonna lie, I did not like the user interface, I didn't like the color scheme, the futuristic vibe made it feel more complicated than it is, a giant map in the middle of the screen, the wall of text and activities on the left-hand side, and it was immediately off-putting to me. However, it's really quite simple, and this was a very temporary gripe for me, especially later on as I learned some more of the customization that I was able to do. Someone immediately invited me to a guild named Vengeance, which I thought was a cool name, and I joined up. I was surprised to see quite a few other players around me, as generally MMOs of this age don't have too many players still active in the starting areas. However, as I would later come to realize, alts are an important part of journeying through this game, as people like to play through all of the different storylines that are available. Compared to most MMOs where you might create an alt character to somehow benefit your main or just to try an entirely different playstyle, in Star Wars The Old Republic, the game actually has massive replayable appeal. By getting access to different parts of the storyline and creating a new character with different choices and ideas, you can even unlock different cutscenes and voice lines. The Old Republic has over 5,500 playable quests or missions, and the vast majority of those are voice
5,500?
I'm not kidding. Even your player character has their own voice acting.
Draw your lightsaber. Show me how powerful you really are.
This is massively impressive, especially when considering that each voice has to be done in both genders and a multitude of different languages as well. Initially, I thought I was just in a sort of tutorial stage where they tend to up the quality of questing and the story for the first bit, but no. As I continued through the game, I was continuously blown away.
All genders and robots too.
Good voice acting that persisted, even in simple side missions that are easily missed.
I'm fairly sure the story is
Sure,
good.
lots of other MMOs have voice acting, but not to the extent that you'll find in this game. It's actually fantastic. And as somebody who generally loves the stories of MMOs but can't be bothered to read paragraph
Loves
after
the
paragraph,
story of MMOs.
this was perfect for me. My first impressions of combat were pretty standard. Abilities felt smooth and streamlined. I was able to take on multiple mobs at once, and generally, most things fell over pretty quickly. I'll have lots to say about the combat later after I've gotten more abilities and tried things, but overall the first impression was standard tab target, decent. The missions were very concise and clear about
Okay, so now look at these lightsabers he's got. They're sheathed on his back.
You needed to do with an
You see
easy
it?
to read
There's like 2 sheaths.
quest tracker, as well as many markers on the minimap utilizing different symbols depending on what you needed to do, whether that's a turn in.
So these are, no, I guess they're like rods. I guess they're like rods,
an action
like
that
stun rods or something. They're not lightsabers.
It's completed in a portion of the map or a different area that you need to access. I quickly realized the majority of my experience was coming from actually turning in missions rather than participating in combat, though
7
that gave a
cents.
sizable chunk of experience as well. There was something here that I really want to emphasize, as it was a pretty unique thing for myself personally. I've never really experienced this before. When I first logged in and saw the user interface, and with the previous expectations of franchise games being a little gimmicky, I think I actually gave myself a negative first perspective of the game. But within one single hour of playtime, I was having an absolute blast, and things that I was first noticing as dislikes about the game, for example the UI, the color scheme, and the readability, was becoming less and less of a problem. I was having so much fun and getting completely caught up in my character's story. I just wanted to point that out because first impressions are so integral to the beginning of any new game or story or MMO. And even though my first impressions were on the more negative side with this game, after just a mere 1 hour of gameplay, I was already changing my mind. This just goes to show that you can never really judge a book by its cover, and I was super excited to continue my journey. At this point, I began to interact with the quick travel system. Essentially, you can quick travel to anywhere on the map that has this little indicator. Your quick travel costs a very trivial amount of money, but it has a cooldown of 6 minutes, which can eventually be upgraded to have no cooldown at all. There's also a galaxy map that features 33 different planets or worlds that you can travel to, each varying in size and generally acting as a new zone. Some of these are massive explorable places with vast open areas, and others are akin to a giant spaceship that acts as a player hub. If your quick travel is currently on cooldown, you can also use the transport system that's available in almost every zone, each with its own unique way of getting around the map, usually involving a flying ship or a speeder, but sometimes taking a train or riding a giant flying manta ray. At this point, I was level 6, still just starting out, but I was beginning to question how and why I had never tried this game before. I have some very early memories of playing another Star Wars MMO known as Star Wars Galaxies, but how had the Old Republic evaded me for so long? I was having a blast and the honeymoon stage had surely set in at this point. The world was fascinating. My character's story was compelling, my decisions were impactful, the combat was feeling good as I was beginning to acquire more abilities, and this is what I would like to call the first stage of addiction. At this point, I played around a bit with the UI, and I was able to get the map off of the center of my screen and into a corner, more akin to a mini-map that you might find in other games. I also added some more action bars. You'll notice throughout this video that my interface might change here and there, as it took me a while to really find the customization that I liked best. At level 7, I fought my first elite mob after summoning the creature from a pool of blood, and my character was also beginning to form a bit of a personality. Like I mentioned, I generally play heroic, good guy characters in games, so I decided moving forward that I would be the most sarcastic asshole of all time. If there was a sarcastic chat option, that's what I chose. If I could make a joke in a very serious situation that disregarded everyone's feelings, that's what I did. Being a Sith Inquisitor constantly gave me the option to exact physical violence on the people that I was chatting with through shocking them, which I also did, constantly. Around level 12 is when I finally acquired my first companion, Chem Val. Interestingly enough, I just recently played EverQuest 2 and praised the game on its excellent mercenary system, essentially giving you a group member to travel the world with and participate in what might have once been group content, but solo. So I was quite surprised to see a similar system here. Essentially, as you progress through the story, you'll find different notable characters who can act as your companion. Each of them have their own storyline and an influence system which you can level up as you increase your relationship with each of these characters. And I mean, these relationships are no joke. You can even get romantically involved. Your companions are always the same level as you and can participate in a few different roles, though I generally kept my companion on the healer role, as constantly getting healed the whole time made everything a lot easier. Finally, it was time to progress within the story, and the game prompted me to travel to some new places. First of all, I was introduced to the Imperial Fleet, which is essentially a player hub. I noticed this guy was levitating and I thought, I want to levitate. But I quickly moved on to Dromund Kaas, a more forested area with an interesting diverse set of mobs. And it was here that I realized I had story quests for my class, but also story quests for each world. This is also where I noticed that level scaling began to take effect. Essentially, while leveling, you might notice that your level will be scaled down when you're in a certain zone so that you don't completely destroy everything in your path. No matter your actual level, completing the missions in that zone will still give you the same or sizable chunk of XP scaled to your level, which allows you to pick and choose and have more options in the actual worlds or areas or zones that you might want to level your character in. At this point, I was doing enough traveling that I really wanted a mount. However, as a free-to-play player, you don't get access to mounts until level 20, versus level 10 as a subscribed player. Questing around Dromund took me to level 17, and I even got this new set of gear. I was beginning to feel like a badass, though looking back on this now as someone who has much more playtime, I still looked like a complete noob. One small annoyance I was beginning to notice is that oftentimes when initiating a quest with a cutscene, which is the majority of quests, it can actually take a second to load. Usually this wasn't an issue, but I had a few times while playing where this took upwards of 10 to 15 seconds to load in the cutscene. It's a small thing, pretty inconsequential, but it's just something I noticed. I finally got to level 20 where I was greeted with a notification detailing to me the importance of subscribing, as I would be getting reduced experience rates from this point forward. Apparently, if you don't subscribe, it reduces your experience by about 25%. However, so far the leveling was so fast, and even after this moment, I hardly noticed a reduction in my leveling speed, if I'm being completely honest. I also went and trained my speeder piloting, which is your mount skill, and I found out after a bit of research online that I wanted to access the GTN, or the Galactic Trade Network, in order to purchase myself a speeder. One problem. Other players set the prices on the Galactic Trade Network, and the cheapest speeder on there was 40k. Okay, a bit more research later, and I found out that there are vendors which sell these mounts for much cheaper, only 8,000. But then I found out the real loophole, the real cheat code, if you will. NY Cantina 16. A free mount for any player. There are a few other codes for other mounts and pets that I'm assuming was released as some promotional item for some event, presumably in the year 2016. Either way, I'll take it. I was officially cruising, though I will admit this mount was rather big. Some more questing later, and I was level 23. This time, I actually was starting to look a little bit more badass. I was quickly directed to the zone of Nar Shaddaa. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I was completely blown away. The entire zone and planet is really a massive crawling cityscape that's been dominated by buildings and industrialization for millennia. One thing the older public does so well is its color design within zones. No 1-2 places in the game feels exactly the same. Each planet has drastically different colors, designs, and areas, and allows each one to feel completely unique. Nar Shaddaa was truly a jaw-drop moment for me when I entered, even this golden statue of not Jabba, as I learned, and these hologram trees, I was completely blown away. While questing around here, I got up to level 28, and I was beginning to notice that I hadn't received any new abilities in quite some time. Actually, each combat style has its own set of abilities that you will automatically get at certain level thresholds, sometimes with quite a bit of space between receiving new abilities. There doesn't seem to be any particular rhyme or reason to when you actually attain these new abilities. For example, most of my character's new abilities would happen only on even levels, but then randomly at level 51, I got the ability Dual Saber Throw. Either way, I was beginning to really enjoy the combat in this game, much more than I was originally. It's actually quite a bit more in depth than just your standard tab target. I had buffs that had to be reapplied every few moments. I had combos of skills that would enhance my other abilities depending on which ones I used first. But the absolute coolest part is the movement. I have an ability that would launch me towards whatever I was targeting, landing with a smash, dealing a decent amount of damage. This was so much fun to use, constantly just jumping into an entire group of enemies and starting to lay down some AoE. It was genuinely so satisfying. You can even activate the ability in midair. Sometimes I wasn't able to see an enemy to use the ability, but if I jumped and I acquired line of sight, you idiot. Then my character would fly toward them. It's seriously addicting. And because
he's not an idiot, I'm just like, man, some of these people did not play WoW because they weren't born yet. Oh, God. You're like, oh my God, Shadow Step was so fun. Charge is so fun. Grats, welcome to 2003.
Aim and questing revolves around combat, allowing it to feel really fluid and fun just makes the entire experience of playing the game even better. However, if I had one annoyance about the combat system, it's that the tab targeting didn't work as well as I noticed.
No, I'm
games.
sure it didn't.
It's often difficult to see and keep track of which NPC that you're actually targeting due to all of the effects happening on the screen in combat. And on top of that, sometimes when you tried to change targets, it would go to one that your character wasn't necessarily facing or you were expecting. It's a small thing, and it's not...
I've been thinking about trying Tortanic again because I never did the storyline. I didn't have the patience for it. Now that it's my job, I could put it in the background and just listen to it for the fucking story. You know, beat another MMO all the way. I don't want to pay for it, is the problem, but I suppose I would pay $15 just to finish it in a month, you know? I bet that'd probably be pretty fun. Who knows? Maybe I like it. Maybe I'll like the game. I kind of doubt it, but I mean, you never know. I'm open-minded. Soul Sprout, Tango Wisp, and Bull Rush. Why does it sound like that? Am I close in? No, somebody's like standing on me. Arcana 110. Powerful, yep, gens. How about strong regens? Can we do those? No, I don't have the mats, not right now. That's okay. I should begin to just sell all this stuff till I have a lot of money. Phoenix Weave is good. Alright, so now
The asteroid is depleted.
my weight is down. I need to put some stuff away. I have a lot of gems, which is always good. Leatherworking, weaving, wooding, stone cutting, arcana, furniture. I picked up a bloodied ancient combat trophy, which might be worth, oh no, I guess that's really good. 3% damage to ancients, sweet. Well, sooner or later I'll buy a house. I guess that's what I'm saving for right now, is I'm going to buy a house now. It's just really not very conducive to the money, but yeah. Those fire motes, they'll sell. Got a lot of fire motes from somewhere. Yeah, shit, I got a lot of stuff. Yeah, hey, fire wisps. Cool. $110. Nice. Fire quintessence, which is something I have to learn again. I'll learn that at 125. Arrow wisps. I like those, what are they? They are encumbrance potions. I guess I don't have the mat. Oh, yeah, no, I do. I have the mats, but we want to go cheaper. We want to do, like, those, and, yeah, I don't really have the mats, huh? Earth wisps and stuff. That's expensive. That's a tier 3. I should not spend that on strong encumbrance potions. That's not wise. Yeah, I suppose we always kind of do the expensive stuff, right? With the cheap mats, though. Yep, cheap mats if possible. Yep, we do whatever cheap mats we can get like that. That's enough, yeah. A little bit more work. Yep. And then how about now? 139. Looking good. We're gonna go back out farming again, right back to that same place that I was at. They want me to do. I have to raise so much money now that it's just a farm. I don't have to focus on anything else. I need 20. I need 30. I need. Well, no, I need like a lot. I need like 30,000 gold by like. God, Thursday or Friday or something. If I want to reach my goal. So I'm gonna get to work doing that, and I'm gonna make 20 or 30,000 gold. It'll be fucking hard. I've never done a grind like that before, but I'll do it now. I think the fastest way is bananas. Oh yeah, yeah. Gathering yield increased. Yeah. Did I get it? No, I didn't get it. Oh, hey. Yeah. Invite me. Oh. Oh well, I'll take the. I'll take his thing. I'm gonna go piss while this guy plays, and I'll be right back. Don't break pen. I need you. BS going hard out there. Yeah. Yeah. It's a snow day, guys. I was supposed to go to the dentist today. I'm not going to have to go. They told me I wouldn't have to. And, yeah, I'm not going. Fuck that. I'm just going to go till I'm tired, and I'm not even tired. I'm going to go for a while today, I think. And, I don't have to go to the dentist today because we have like a half foot of snow on the ground. Fucking crazy. Yep, base gathering speed. Give it. Give me that tip. Tip. Yes, tip donated. There. Good. So now, gonna need to get gold. Let's, go do... I guess I'll go back to there. That was a really good place to make money. I'll just go farm there.
The asteroid is depleted.
Too noticeable unless you're fighting many mobs at the same time, but it was something I noticed quite frequently while I was.
Combat looks fun,
so far, my
actually.
Sith Marauder is the only character that I've played, but I'm excited to try new characters and see what other mobility and cool combat interactions exist. Something that I absolutely have to mention at this point, though, is every single time that I launch this game, literally every single time,
you have to type in your
accept
password.
The terms and conditions, the T's and C's. You have to scroll through 2 pages of dialogue. I researched this issue online, and while not everyone has the same issue, a lot of people do. Like, way too many people. If anyone has a fix for this, please let me know in the comments. It's not the end of the world, however, it's a little bit annoying. Anyways, afterward, I was directed to Tatooine, a massive zone featuring a large desert expanse that well, it was probably my least favorite zone to quest in across my entire time playing. I don't even know why. It was just the endless desert or the story within the area or my new sarcastic companion that originally pissed me off. After questing there, I had achieved level 30, and I realized I had played the game basically entirely solo at this point. So I decided to check out some of the activities that are available. You can queue up for a multitude of things from PvE to PvP to solo encounters, where basically your level will scale and all of them can reward a sizable chunk of XP. So I queued up for my first veteran flashpoint, essentially a 4-man dungeon with a variety of mobs. You'll get incentivized to join up and do these pretty early on as you start to get quests that will direct you to finish or complete objectives within these flashpoints. I would love to say that I had a stellar first experience, however, we ran into a bit of group trouble. Even though I had no idea what I was doing, and I was just following along with my teammates, they began to argue. They were calling each other leeches and saying that the other was providing no help to the group. Me, as an actual leech, decided to stay silent and hope that things worked out for the better. But eventually, one of those teammates left. And then my game crashed. I'm not even kidding, my game hadn't crashed up until this point, and has not crashed since then. I took it as a sign that maybe I'm not ready to participate in the group content just yet, and I decided to tackle that later on when I had more experience with the game. I didn't want to mess with people's leveling. Plus, the story's so good, I was itching to get back to it. So I got myself to level 34 while questing in some new areas, and even got myself some definitely badass gear. It was at this point that I was beginning to enjoy the game so much that I figured it's time I pay for the subscription. I realized I would definitely not be happy stopping at level 60, and on top of that, I would like to get back to normal experience rates, not the reduced rates that I had been receiving since level 20. Basically, the subscription unlocks everything else in the game. It's definitely not a complete hindrance to play free-to-play for a while, and I would recommend doing that to just about anybody who is on the fence about the game. But once you begin to get a little bit more invested and you want to progress even further, the subscription is completely worth it, as it unlocks the entirety of the endgame, as well as many small benefits along the way. After I reached level 40, I just kept questing. The leveling experience was beginning to slow down slightly, and compared to a lot of other popular MMOs out right now, I felt that this was more akin to an older style of leveling. I'm sure that there's metas and ways to speed level a character super quick, but my experience as a new player and playing through the storyline is that leveling was a bit slower and more impactful in Star Wars: The Old Republic. But not so slow that it was becoming tedious. It was a nice balance, and it was fun to feel and see my character become more and more powerful. I leveled through the poisonous gases of Quesh into the frozen icy tundra that is White Maw. I found this awesome looking tomb area in the corner of Belsavis. Oh, and also, I think I just hooked up with an alien. I'm pretty sure my character is in love with and potentially looking to get married to an alien. Awesome. Now, then something kind of strange happened. Around level 48, I came across my first gathering and trade skills trainers. This completely blew me away, as for some reason in my entire time playing, I had never even noticed or thought of trade skills. The game had not incentivized me to learn or train any of them, and probably a little bit due to my own ignorance, I had basically not seen any gathering nodes or resources out in the world. I decided to look into it a bit, and essentially they work like this. You have gathering skills and crafting skills. Essentially, gather resources, create items. Pretty standard. However, you also have crew skills. Your character has access to a ship and a crew that you can send on missions to go and participate in these skills and gather resources of their own. Now, I aim to make these videos and explore most parts of the game that I find interesting and compelling. But to be honest, I was not particularly enticed or incentivized at all to participate in these skills for the time being. I had no real desire to go and train these skills just yet, and I figured that I could work on that later when I was higher level, or I had completed most of the questing and leveling that I was looking to do. But the fact that I completely overlooked trade skills even existing in this game is pretty interesting to me. I don't know if that's ever happened to me in any other MMO that I've played. Sure, I've played games with bad trade skill systems where I don't enjoy the gameplay loop, but my complete ignorance of their existence really surprised me. Of course, like I said, some of it is born out of my own ignorance, but I feel as though they could do a better job showing new players that these systems are indeed in the game and can be worked on and trained. Another thing that I would like to talk about is my legacy level. Legacies are a really cool way that the Old Republic introduced account-wide progression. You can actually craft relationships between your characters through a family tree, making them siblings and children and even spouses.
Weird.
Through your legacy level, you can unlock things that will be unlocked across all of your characters.
What a dumb way to get them to play the game again.
Systems, as they generally allow you to avoid doing multiple tedious grinds on multiple different characters. That can begin to become redundant and feel bad to do time and time again. Essentially, with your legacy level, you can unlock certain things, such as the increased fast travel cooldown, and when you unlock that thing, every one of your characters also unlocks it moving forward. Also, when you reach level 50 with a particular character, whatever species that character is can be unlocked to play with any class moving forward. This allows for a lot more customization of different types of interesting characters that you might want to try out later on. Anyways, I continued leveling.
I'm at 3K, going up,
One had a
500 since I last checked.
And when I was entering the Zone of Voss, I fought against nightmares. I even upgraded my quick travel down to 2 minutes, which felt fantastic. And also, I learned, get this, you can zoom out farther. It only took me 55 levels of gameplay to realize that this was a feature. The new field of view was fantastic. Also, I picked myself up a bit of a smaller speeder because I was positively swimming in cash at this point. I made my way to Corellia, which unbeknownst to me at the time is actually where you finish your character's story progression. I still had plenty of planets that I needed to quest in, but I was just following my class storyline for a while, so I was pretty caught up in it. Corellia was another cityscape-esque zone with some fantastic questing and truly badass cutscenes. At this point, I had acquired level 60, which is the level cap for free-to-play players. This took me about 50 hours of game time, though hardly efficient as I spent so much time listening to the story and exploring the different worlds and completing side quests. I was curious about other parts of the game, and I decided to try my hand at some of the different PvP game modes. So first up, War Zones. These are the domination type game mode where you and your team fight to capture certain objectives while slaying as many of the enemies as possible. I had an absolute blast in these. First of all, your character gets scaled to level 80 and it seems to be fairly balanced in terms of player power. I mean, at least I wasn't getting completely one-shot, as I might or might not have in other MMOs PvP. However, my stealth abilities seemed a little bit overpowered at times, as it allowed me to engage or disengage with quite a bit of an advantage. And also, the crowd control was a little bit out of this world. I was constantly locked up in stuns, and although I had a freedom ability, it had a much longer cooldown compared to the amount of time that I spent stunned.
Wow.
Secondly, we have the Starfighter PvP, where you literally join a galactic space fight where you operate one of your ships and fight in a team against enemies in their ships. I got completely and utterly destroyed. I mean, like, I got wiped off the face of the planet, the galaxy. I had no clue where I was getting attacked from. I had no clue who was attacking me. It seems like it could be a lot of fun, but my utter confusion in terms of the gameplay just left to me getting melted. I love PvP in MMOs, especially your standard war zones or arenas, but when it comes to spaceship fighting, well, I just have no experience in that type of gameplay, so it's definitely not for me. But if you want to live out your Star Wars ship fighting fantasy, I can see some massive appeal in this game mode for certain
Graphics
people.
look good.
All in all, at this point, I felt like I had experienced enough of Star Wars The Old Republic to share my first impressions of the game and to offer my thoughts on how this game stacks up in the year 2023. The one main thing that stood out to me while playing this game is that it almost feels like a single-player RPG with many multiplayer elements. The story and the sense of progression is on par and similar to other single-player RPGs, but then if you want to hop into some PvP or do some flashpoints, you can queue up and play with others whenever you'd like. If you want to do some heroic missions, you can simply ask in general chat if anyone else is interested. You definitely don't have to play with other players, but there is plenty to do if you want to. Let's go through some of my favorite parts about Star Wars, and then some parts that I didn't like, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. Firstly, favorites. Number 1. And it has to be number 1. The story in this game is diverse, engaging, voice-acted, dynamic depending on your choices, and you essentially get 8 different stories as you can play through the game as 8 different characters, all with their own storylines. You can be good, you can be evil, you can be heroic, you can be weak, you can be exceptionally kind, you can be extremely sarcastic. The options give this game a sense of variety and replayability that I just haven't seen in other games. Number 2. The absurd size of this game from planet to planet that feels completely unique and different and interesting in each zone you enter through different color schemes, map designs, and the overall vibes from sprawling cityscapes to massive outdoor worlds with no sign of civilization. It gives you an overall sense of non-stop exploration. Number 3. The feeling of your character's power growing while you progress through a somewhat slower leveling process that really allows you to enjoy your character and see them getting more and more powerful. It's something that gets lost in modern MMOs at times, and I'm glad to see this game stick to those roots. And finally, the fluid and fun combat system along with your mercenary that allows you to take on so much content. Going up against many mobs at the same time, not quite at the level of your typical ARPG hack and slash, but still to a satisfying degree. Also, the jumps, man. I love the jumps. Now, some of the things that I think could use some work. Number 1. While new players are introduced to the story and the main gist of the game fairly quickly, there are a lot of systems that even now I haven't really interacted with too much. The crafting system being one of them, with my crew skills that I could be sending out. I wish the game did a better job of introducing the player to these things so they don't go unnoticed. Number 2. Interaction with other players felt mostly limited to a few select game modes. While the single-player option of this game can be perceived as a benefit in a lot of ways, at the end of the day it's an MMORPG, and I think more player interaction could be incentivized in certain areas to create a better sense of community. Number 3. The visual clutter during combat was sometimes a bit excessive to the point that it was difficult to tell exactly which NPC I was targeting and even what was fully happening at the time. Though this was usually only when facing a large group of enemies. And finally, just a small amount of jankiness. Not a lot, but enough to say it's noticeable. From me having to accept the T's and C's every time I launch the game, to having to use the /stuck command in more than a few scenarios where sometimes I was literally stuck or my player couldn't exit combat. This is by no means game breaking, but it's just some small annoyances that could probably be easily fixed up and prevented. All in all, Star Wars The Old Republic was genuinely one of the better gaming experiences I've had concerning MMOs, especially considering it's set in the Star Wars sci-fi universe. Generally, an area that I'm not even particularly interested in. My expectations were not only met, but exceeded by this game, and I would definitely recommend giving this game a try, even in the year 2020. Am I going to continue playing? Absolutely. I'm going for level 80. I want to get more involved in war zones and PvP, and I most definitely want to try out a lot of the different characters' origin stories. Even if you, like me, have prior expectations concerning Star Wars and some of the games that you might have tried in the past didn't live up to your expectations, please don't let that influence your decision regarding the Old Republic, because this game is fantastic. I could easily see myself sinking hundreds, if not thousands of hours into this game, and that's just based on story alone. However, I will say if you're not very interested in the story and you don't care much for your character's decisions and the way that they change and interact with the game, then the decent combat and feeling of progression is still there to back it up after the fact. Anyway, folks, thank you all for tuning in. If you made it to the end of the video, don't forget to drop a like, comment, tell me your favorite origin story you've played, and if you haven't played, well then tell me what you had for breakfast. And also, think about subscribing. If you're never...
Yeah, Wade Out was good. I like him. Yeah, he's good. I like him.
Action combat, MMORPG.
Thank you, Wade Out, for the excellent content from my stream. I would like to sub to your channel. Now, Neverwinter I've beaten. I like Neverwinter, the MMO, actually. I would not mind returning to that game. It's kind of RP, but it's a 3D game, and it has a full-voiced story that's actually very true to I would say it's the truest I've seen D&D be to the source material. More so than even Baldur's Gate 3, really. Baldur's Gate 3 had a very minimal scope, actually, compared to Neverwinter. And I might return to Neverwinter and... yeah, I probably will toss some more MMOs in my rotation. I wouldn't mind beating Neverwinter again. I have a high opinion of Neverwinter. I think that's a great game. It's my sort of combat. You hold down buttons. It's a controller MMO. That's worth it. That's gonna be some money. Aren't they pretty? Oh yeah. Gotta get out of here before they pop. Is everything right? Yeah, that's everything. Fun as hell.
Docking request accepted.
You didn't dock? Why didn't you dock?
Studios and originally released on PC in 2013 and consoles in 2015.
Oh, is it 10 years old
Despite
now?
its
Yeah, it
release on
is.
multiple platforms, Neverwinter is not cross-platform. Xbox can't
It's
play with
sad.
PlayStation, and
It should be.
consoles can't play with PC.
What a
Although the
terrible
game generally
decision.
sits around 1,100 concurrent players on Steam, it's hard to estimate the game's
1,100?
true population,
That's it.
as there aren't very many options for MMOs on consoles. The ones that do exist and play quite well tend to be fairly popular, especially if they're free to play. Neverwinter is still actively being developed and worked on to this day. The most recent update, or module, as
Last
they're
time I
called,
played
is
PlayStation in like
Spelljamming,
2021,
which came out
it was
just this
hopping.
past
It was
December.
full of people.
I won't be jumping
It was
into
great.
much of the new
City was
content,
full,
as this is
completely
going to
full.
be a review and playthrough from a new player's perspective. Today, I aim to answer one question. Should you play Neverwinter as a new player in the year 2024? Before we jump into that, I would just like to mention that I recently turned on channel memberships for this channel, with a few different tiers that will allow you to support me if you've been enjoying the MMO new player impressions and reviews. Thanks guys, let's jump into it. First off, I would like to mention that I'm not a very experienced fantasy fan when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons. However, I have read the entire Icewind Dale trilogy featuring Drizzt Do'Urden, so I was excited to see this world more fleshed out in an MMORPG sense. Character creation was pretty standard, though I was surprised at the amount of different races. 14 in total from Drow to Tiefling, but 5 of them are paywall, meaning you would have to pay money to access them. However, that still leaves 9 races that you can access completely for free. Of course, as a Drizzt fan, I had to play Drow in order to live out my full D&D fantasy. Furthermore, there are 9 playable classes in Neverwinter, all fairly standard. Warlock, Wizard,
Oh
Rogue,
God, get
Bard,
out of it.
Paladin, the likes. All of these classes are considered a sort of baseline, and later on in your progression,
What?
you'll be able to choose something called a Paragon Path, which further sort of
I was nowhere
narrows down
near
your
that
playstyle
mob.
and class identity. Because I chose to be a rogue, for example, later on I can choose the
So
Paragon
dumb.
Path of Whisper Knife, which focuses on throwing knives and range damage, or I can be an assassin, which focuses on stealth and melee. All in all, character creation was a smooth process. There are many different options for customizing how you actually appear, and furthermore, many different options for choosing your character's story and background and where they came from, including even a deity that they worship. Which I think is important, especially when you're talking about a game that's paying homage to
Damn it,
D&D.
I lost the body
character's
for this
background
mob.
and story
Ah.
can be so essential to how they might play out in the world, and creating that fantasy can actually be a lot of fun. Waydot, the Drow Rogue from Neverwinter. Interesting. I was excited to jump into this, and listen folks, you can still get a girlfriend even if you're a complete nerd. I promise, it's possible. Jumping into the game, I was met with this beautifully done cutscene. However, the transition from cinematic
does
into
that have to
actual
do with
gameplay
anything?
was slightly jarring. My character's exceptionally awkward movements, and the hair that was now clipping off of my head, well, it wasn't the most regal of introductions. But anyway, you begin in a sort of tutorial-ish area. Wow, the mouse sensitivity it started me on is insane. Let's change that. Okay, the glowing yellow line is telling me where to go. I actually love when games feature this, however,
love
I
it
have
too.
noticed sometimes in other games that this yellow quest indicator path can get a little buggy or lead you to the wrong area. Let's see if that's the case in Neverwinter. The voice acting
Nope,
is much
it is
appreciated,
not.
and so far the user interface looked exceptionally
I
clean
loved
and easy to
Neverwinter. It
understand.
had
The
such a
action
good
bar
quest
only
system.
features about 8 bindable abilities. You see this often with games that are released both on PC as well as console to make them a little bit more accessible. There's a quest tracker and a minimap to the right, options and further user interface menus up top, and a clean looking nameplate in the left corner. Lots of real estate to see and interact with the game in the center, which I really enjoy. It definitely wasn't overwhelming or difficult to follow as a new player. The game immediately throws you into combat, and the combat is actually kind of fun. It's an action combat game, so you need to look directly at your enemy to attack them, though there seems to be some sort of soft lock targeting. If I'm being completely honest here, and this is just my first impressions, but it
I never
kind of
played
feels
it on
like a more
PC.
primitive and older version of New World's combat.
Yeah,
which
I
mean,
loved
on
combat in
paper,
that
is
game.
exactly what it is. But it's pretty smooth, the damage numbers feel great, and so far, I was happy.
No, it's not like New
to
World,
finish off
it's
this
more
sort of
like,
tutorial area, you are greeted with
no, it's its own thing. You hold down a button and the character swings. So it's sort of like Final Fantasy 15 is a more fluid game like that, where you hold down the right trigger to, or whatever, the circle button to swing. Like Final Fantasy 7 Remaster, like that. Your character swings as long as you hold down the right trigger. That's how Neverwinter is. It's not like New World at all. New World, if I hold down the trigger, nothing happens. Yeah, like I'm holding down my mouse like full. I mean, I accidentally hit a button there, but sorry, because I dropped the mouse. But yeah, like nothing happens if I hold down the trigger. In Neverwinter, it does. You can just hold it. It's like a shredder. You just hold down your finger on a shredder, and your character goes wah 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 in a cone in front of them and kills everything in front of them. And it's addictive. It's good. Nothing wrong with it. It's good to return to Angry Earth. I hadn't done it much. I did it much. I finished the storyline and did all the stuff and got 700 eye level and then quit. I was like, I don't know. But it's fun to return to it and get some work done. There's always more work to be done in New World. I like it. I like it a lot more than RuneScape. It just goes on and on and on and on. The farming never ends. It just keeps going. I actually like that. It's endless. My god, there's so much stuff here. This is like the most fertile, lush, like farming spot because it's like the end of the game. Pretty much the end of the game.
Harbinger, which teaches you quite early on that if the ground turns red, you need to get out of the way. Movement is actually pretty nice. Using your stamina, you can press shift to roll out of the way of the enemy attacks. It's always appreciated. Immediately after the tutorial, I was taken to Protector's Enclave, which seems to be the main player hub. Here I saw tons of people, and honestly, for the rest of my time playing, I was constantly going back to Protector's Enclave to start new quests and buy new things. You're taken to the Adventurers Guild, where the game attempts to teach you a few more things and systems before sending you off on your adventure. I was immediately greeted with a mount. Thank God. I love when games give you a mount early. But also, I was introduced to my class power, Stealth, and something called Daily Powers, which I very wrongly assumed meant that I could only use them once per day. But no, they're just special, powerful abilities that you can use after you've accumulated a certain amount of a resource in combat. Think of it as an ultimate ability in a lot of other games. You can use it as many times as you would like.
It's so good.
At this point,
the
I
ultimates were
noticed
so
something
good.
really strange. I don't appear to have an experience bar or an experience tracker. I have no idea how close I am to the next level. Now, seriously, where is my experience? How do I even gain experience? What is the max level? Does this game have a leveling system? Okay, yeah, it says I'm level 2. What's going on here? I went on Google and did a bit of research.
I like these things.
And
these things are
this
new.
is interesting. Apparently, the level cap in this game used to be 80. You would gain experience from questing and combat, and slowly over a period of time, you would gain levels, which is similar to basically all other MMOs. But as of Module 21, which was released about 3 years ago, they took the level cap down to 20 to make it fit more in line with D&D.
Oh, really?
What's interesting
They
is when this
did?
update released, if you had,
Wow.
let's say, a character that was level 40, well, they were now level 20.
Shit, sold. Fucking sold. I'm gonna go download it right now. No, I did not know they did that. That's huge. I've downloaded Neverwinter before, I believe. Yeah. We're gonna do Neverwinter, yeah. But what drive? Install Neverwinter on. I have 133 gigs, but you want more than that, I think, for this, which is annoying. I wouldn't mind having it on my D drive forever. Yeah, let's just put it on the D drive forever. It's fine. It's good. Even if it takes longer to load, who cares? I won't be maining it, so it's good. And it's an old game. It doesn't need to be very intense, Cool, fast. So run this, and I just want to run the launcher. Oh yeah, so where am I now? I'm compressing. all this stuff. And I'm dropping it off at home.
Warp drive active. Docking request accepted.
I love that sound. God, this game's fucking addictive. It's one of the more addictive games I've ever played, but it also, like, all the time that you're addicted to, it makes you nervous. Like, are you gonna break my heart? Are you gonna break my heart? Are you gonna break my heart if I fall in love with you? It has that terrible feeling of, like, a bad romance. You're like, are you gonna break my heart? Are you gonna break my heart if I love you? You know? I love this game, but I mean, like, it already has kind of broken my heart in some ways. Oh, God, come on. You're gonna break my heart if I give you my heart, you know? Are you gonna treat me right? Are you gonna fuck me over? Ah! Stupid thing. The bow hurts. You can see the arrows sticking out of it. So cool. Where I hit him. So cool. Smart system. love that that's on E. Actually, it's brilliant. Please move. Not bad. God damn it. Scroll lock. Stop putting me off screen, bitch. So annoying. Every time I alt tab it breaks it, I think. Which is so annoying.
If you had any character past character creation, it was now granted the max level in the game, level 20. Essentially removing the leveling process from the game in order to streamline players directly into the endgame. They were even given a free set of gear which would take them to an item level of 20,000, which is generally where the endgame begins. So these days, as a brand new player, you get levels from story quest rewards. And as you pass further parts in the story, different quests will grant you different levels. I've heard it be said that getting max level in Neverwinter takes very little time these days, and it's mostly considered a sort of tutorial to prepare you for the rest of this game. Now, at this point, I would just like to add my personal opinion to this sort of design. Call me old school, but I think that a longer leveling grind can be in some ways essential to the MMO experience. Obviously, everyone can play every game how they would like to, but there's something special about leveling up and having that process take a fair amount of time and effort. If leveling your character to the max level is just a tutorial, why not do away with the leveling system entirely? To me, it feels rather arbitrary if you just want people to jump directly into the endgame. I think a good MMO will focus on every aspect of the game. New player introduction, mid-game and leveling, and then later on early endgame, mid-endgame, and true endgame. Bypassing the entire leveling process doesn't allow for the feel-good chemicals of progression to tie you into your character and your character's class and identity, which is such a pivotal part, at least in my opinion, of what makes you enjoy playing that character. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind a fast leveling process in some games. Sometimes certain games can take way too long to level, and that can become tedious as well. However, I think it's important that the RPG element of MMORPGs remains in the game. Anyway, feel free to disagree or tell me why I'm wrong in the comments, but either way, I'll get levels from passing certain milestones in story quests, and apparently this process is not going to take me very long. Yeah, there it is, already level 3 from a quest reward. You also get your character's abilities from these quest rewards as well.
God damn it, you fucked me again. You changed my video on the second screen somehow when I'm playing on the first screen. It's like crazy how you do this. So stupid. How did you do this? How did you skip it back 6 videos?
A free-to-play action combat MMORPG.
Oh my god, and you dropped me back too.
Abilities. You see this often with games that are released both on PC as well as console to make them a little bit more accessible. There's a quest tracker and a minimap to the right, options and further user interface menus up top, and a clean-looking nameplate in the left corner. Lots of real estate to see and interact with the game in the center, which I really enjoy. It definitely wasn't overwhelming or difficult to follow as a new player. The game immediately throws you into combat, and the combat is actually kind of fun. It's an action combat game, so you need to look directly at your enemy to attack them. Though there seems to be some sort of soft lock targeting. If I'm being completely honest here, and this is just my first impressions, but it kind of feels like a more primitive and older version of New World's combat. Which I mean, on paper, is exactly what it is. But it's pretty smooth, the damage numbers feel great, and so far, I was having fun. To finish off this sort of tutorial area, you are greeted with the Harbinger, which teaches you quite early on that if the ground turns red, you need to get out of the way. Movement is actually pretty nice. Using your stamina, you can press
way
shift.
further than this here.
I did end up coming across some resources in a dungeon that required some sort of trade skill to be able to gather. For example, these glowing green mushroom things needed the nature skill. I wondered if I would be able to pick up trade skills later on. But I got myself to level 5 and I called it for day 1. Despite the odd leveling process and some of my early confusion, I was actually having a great time. The gameplay loop, and especially the combat, was a lot of fun. As I logged in the next day, I was greeted with this welcome screen. It made me curious about the microtransactions and monetization of the game. So I decided to check out the in-game store and take a look for myself. The Zen Market, where you use Zen coins. It looked pretty standard to me. You can purchase tons of cosmetics, tons of resources, a character boost to level 20 with an item level of 50,000. There's also a subscription service called VIP, which grants you like a 10% boost to XP and a certain amount of resources every day. To be honest, pretty standard as far as a free-to-play MMO goes. Nothing here really stood out to me as completely unheard of or egregious. However, any in-game store with this level of monetization will always take away from the integrity of the game, and my stance on that will never change. I'll keep my eyes out while playing for any moment the game tries to further incentivize me to spend more money. But from my quick look on the store, it seems that most of these are going to benefit someone who is a bit deeper into the game and perhaps progressing into the end game. But there was one cool thing about the store. I saw there was a free mount, so I got myself this cool looking wolf. If any game has an in-game store, make sure you always check to see if there's some free things. You wouldn't want to be riding around on a lame horse. Doing some more questing, I was directed back to the Adventurers Guild, where I learned about the daily buff system. Essentially, there are these resting areas located all throughout the game with open air bonfires. While you're in these areas, you can invoke your daily buff. And through this, you get loot, temporary boosts, a few different forms of currencies that you might need later. I don't know. Whenever I was in a resting area, I made sure to invoke if it was available. However, at this point, I didn't really see the tangible benefit to doing so. Afterwards, I was shown the companion system.
The Zen.
Dude, yes. All of these older games that are introducing companions to allow you to clear through what might have once been group content by yourself. I love this. It basically makes soloing a little bit more viable, and any game that has a companion system that I've played recently...
Oh, it's got a companion system.
In
I forgot
Neverwinter,
about that.
you can pick from a few different types of companions, from damage to utility and healing. Another cool thing is that you can actually gear up your companions, and you'll find companion-specific gear throughout leveling and questing. I made my way into Volosk, and also came across this thievery resource, which is a skill or a trade skill that I guess I can use. It makes sense, I'm a rogue. I don't know if all classes have this gathering skill by default, or even how any of the other trades or skills work, but cool, I can steal stuff. One thing I was beginning to notice during combat is that it seemed like the majority of my skills were on cooldown the majority of the time. I spent a lot of time simply using auto or normal attacks during combat. Cooldowns for all of my abilities were usually greater than 15 seconds. The abilities were quite powerful, of course, but I wish I had a little bit more class identity and skill expression in my rotation, as 90% of the rotation seemed to just be normal attacks. Maybe I was doing something wrong, or maybe that's just a very specific rogue problem. But either way, it kind of sucked sometimes, always seeming to be waiting on cooldowns. Around level 6, I was starting to look a bit more roguelike. The face mask and gear had me feeling a little bit better considering my awkward beginnings. I got to level 7, there's level 9, I got to level 11 in Icespire Peak, there's level 13, I'm now looking iced out. All of this leveling took, I don't know, maybe 3 hours of gameplay. I was past halfway to the max level of 20 and mostly just traveling to new areas, picking up the story quests in that area, and continuing on. I want to mention something curious about the graphical style of this game. It really reminds me of early Xbox 360 graphics. There's this sort of lighting effect where when an area is lit up, it tends to blur the lighting in that specific area. It's reminiscent of like Fable and Dragon Age and some other early Xbox 360 games. It's not bad by any means, it just gave me a bit of nostalgia for games from that era. If you guys know what I mean by that sort of lighting blurring effect, please let me know. There was a very specific time in gaming where it seemed like a lot of games used this sort of graphical style. One thing that became super annoying to me while I was playing, and this could be due to some sort of complete lack of understanding on my end, but the game doesn't feature a cursor most of the time. Unless you hit escape and bring up your menu, then your cursor appears. But as your mouse controls the camera for the rest of the game, if I had certain pop-ups, like so, I wouldn't be able to click on them unless I paused and hit rearrange HUD in order to use my cursor. Otherwise, I was sentenced to sifting through other menus to find out where that particular notification came from. Am I doing something wrong? This seems unintentional, but it was super annoying as I continued to play throughout the game, and more instances of this same scenario were happening. I got to level 16 and finally chose a Paragon path. I think I was actually supposed to do this around level 10, but as a rogue, like I said, I have two options. I ended up going with the Assassin, which granted me access to a bunch of different abilities and even some new auto attacks, which actually looked pretty awesome. Okay, I definitely should have chosen a Paragon path sooner. I am so much stronger now, I don't know what I was doing. To be honest, I didn't even really know it was an option until this point. Anyway, moving on. I found myself stuck in the floor while doing an instanced story quest that I really didn't want to start over. I figured if I used the /stuck command, it might just teleport me out of the instance. However, to my surprise, /stuck worked perfectly. It teleported me directly back to where I needed to be. A welcome surprise, to say the least. I've had some bad experiences using the stuck command in a lot of other games. I got to level 18, and then level 19, and finally acquired the last quest, which will take me to level 20. Boom. There it is, max level. Probably about 8 hours of gameplay in total. Like I said, in a lot of other MMOs, this is a really defining and cool moment for new players. And the way it's sort of watered down in this quasi-tutorial in Neverwinter, it definitely didn't have me feeling the same way about hitting max level as I did in other games. At level 20, you're greeted with about 1 million different quests in Protector's Enclave. I was pretty overwhelmed. I didn't know what I should be working on first. I didn't know where I should go. I have absolutely no idea what the endgame or even the mid-game really looks like, as I still feel firmly as though I should be in the new player introduction or very early game. I still felt like I didn't understand much about Neverwinter. Sure, the combat and the questing all made sense, but what am I working towards? What should I do now? Where does the grind come in? What's the point? So, once again, I decided to do some research. Okay, so the main progression loop of the game is through item level. Each of your pieces of gear has a specific item level, and the total of all of those eye levels combined makes your character's item level, along with certain enchantments and companions. So for example, if all of my currently equipped items have a level of 1,000, that will end up with my character having a total item level of around 20,000. In your journal, you're going to find a few different paths of progression. First up, you have your adventures, which is basically exactly what you've been doing during your entire leveling process. Each adventure has a different item level suggestion, and while working towards these, you're going to get new gear which increases your item level as well. The first adventure that I could work towards was undermounting, and that's what I began doing. The gameplay loop was identical to the leveling process, just questing. Kill 10 this, light this beacon, do this dungeon, kill this boss, and when you finish that adventure, you would go on to the next one. There are also campaigns, which are separate from adventures. Campaigns are content that is released with each module or expansion to the game. These are much more grindy than adventures because generally there is a resource or currency that you're going to need to grind and farm in order to actually complete the campaign. This is where the real character progression and the grind comes into the game, and according to most testimonial that I read online, in order to actually progress your character to best in slot or close to it, you're probably going to need to spend literally years grinding out some of this content. When comparing to other games at max level, Neverwinter is definitely a bit of a different experience. There is group PVM content, but my understanding is that the majority of it requires you to have a certain eye level or amount of endgame knowledge that I was nowhere near to having. As far as I could tell, there was no real early group content, and it's mainly just questing, following the storylines, and farming. I checked out the Undermountain Adventure, and I actually completed it. It took me maybe a few hours, and at this point I had 24,000 item levels. The amount of different items and currency in this game was fairly overwhelming as well. There's money, Zen coins, Astral Diamonds, Ardent coins, Celestial coins, and then furthermore there is refinement points, which you can get from breaking down almost any item you get, and you can use to further upgrade equipment and items. Then I learned about boons, which is essentially your character's talent tree. You acquire boon points from completing adventures and campaigns as well. I continued through the adventures working on Elemental Evil, which had 4 different quest lines, each revolving around a different element. For example, water, and then I was on to the fire pits, and even the air elementals, which actually had a really cool looking zone, which I appreciated. One thing I was beginning to notice though is that during my first adventure, I was constantly receiving gear from loot and quest rewards that were actually upgrades, usually up to an item level of 1150. However, during my entire time questing through this second elemental adventure, I kept getting the same item level gear over and over, 1150. At this point, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of bored of just doing adventures and the same sort of quests and dungeons over and over. It was becoming exceptionally repetitive. I figured there must be some sort of group content that I can participate in, even though I have a pretty low item level. And that's when I found the queuing system. Okay, cool. It looks like we have about 11 basic dungeons that only have a requirement of an item level of 25,000. Let's queue up and see what happens. If I end up getting carried or being a complete burden, at least I'll get a bit of a taste of what some of the group content might look like in Neverwinter. So, some time went by and I was in the queue. I decided to take a look around at some of the other interfaces. I got completely caught up in fashion. While playing, you can assign any old piece of gear to an appearance item, which you can then use to transmog with your current gear. There's a really robust dye system as well. I don't think I had unlocked any new dyes at this point, but with just the basic colors, I managed to make myself an extremely ugly, but also kind of edgy, red-white outfit. Cool. I've now been in the queue for 10 minutes. 11 different dungeons. What the heck? Is no one running these? This is obviously a part of the game where I think cross-platform play would be majorly beneficial, as reducing some of these queue times would make the entire game just more accessible by allowing people to group up and play with others easier. 10 more minutes went by and I thought maybe I'm doing something wrong. I decided to try the private queue section and I was immediately teleported into the dungeon, the Caverns of Carendax. I can probably solo this, right? No.
No.
And it was at this point that I began to question, what am I actually doing? This game feels like a single-player RPG with mediocre questing and repetitive landscapes and fights that is in the transition period of attempting to become an MMO, but doing basically all of the MMO parts quite poorly. I mean, the gameplay that I have participated in has not changed in the slightest since I created my character over 55 hours ago. I have done the same activities, the same quests. The only thing that changed was when 8 hours in, I was max level, and then the storylines of each new area. Group content seems completely unapproachable as a new player, and even joining the queue resulted in me just waiting for 20 plus minutes. I felt very little progression in terms of my character and my character's power. The mobs are the same difficulty basically in every area I went, despite how many upgrades or new abilities my character learned along the way. I've never felt so lost and bored in an MMO in terms of what the heck should I be doing?
It's over when you're done with it.
Hidden? I know
That's
Josh
the
Strife
secret.
Hayes has a video on this topic, but if a game takes hundreds, potentially thousands of hours for you to get to the fun part of a game, dare I say it, the game might just not be that fun.
The
I
fun
could
part
see
of the
myself
game
as a
was
new player
playing
potentially
it,
enjoying
and then, you know, after a couple of 100 hours, you're done. You're just like done. You had some fun, you know, and all that, but that's all it really is. It was never an MMORPG. You couldn't live on it. It was a console controller RPG that was multiplayer. There was no raids or anything. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't that deep. No. I'm gonna do a one and done. I was thinking about, like, my interest in it is I did two-hand fighter to cap, and it was actually extremely fun. It was like genuinely fun. It was like very fun, and I wonder maybe if a mage might be really fucking fun, especially if they'll give me a tank follower, and he'll just run out and let me nuke everything. And I'm thinking that might actually be fucking really fun, you know? For the few hours of playthrough that I get out of it. Damn, that one attack, like, killed him. Straight up killed him. I'm gonna have to do a song in 5 minutes, which is so annoying. This has the best farming I've ever had in a game. Better than Fallout, better than anything. And it feels like progression, and I know what each thing is and what it does for me, and it's awesome. Like those little pink plants, they drop honey. Honey is the tier 1 ingredient, the way copper is for mining. So without honey, you can't do anything at all in cooking, which is kind of crazy. And it's true too. Without salt, sugar, honey, certain things, you can't cook at all. Spices, can't make anything taste good anyways. So honey has very high value, and these little plants are honey. So cool. How's this going? Oh, I am out of... Oh, I ran out of the asteroid. Alright, well. Yeah, go set the drones on that one. One of the things I really liked about Neverwinter, and the main reason I'm going to go back to it, is each and every quest, and there's so many quests, is full voiced in the longest quest text I've ever seen in a game. And it's very detailed, and every quest has a point, and every quest giver has an attitude, and they all know why they want what they want, and they tell you why and what you're doing, and it comes out as just grinding. But they did do that aspect of the whole, like people kind of neglected that side of it. If you listen to the full voiceover, it's actually a really deep game that goes on for a while. It's got a good story. I don't think Mythic's that great of a company. They seem to be like sort of like the people like Standing Stone Games or whatever, or whoever took over for Lord of the Rings Online and DDO, whatever their name is now, Black Isle or whatever, I forget the name of their name. But yeah, like they like their stores. They live off their stores. They don't care if you play their game for free at all. They want you to come into the store and drop their gacha. They're like Western gachas, but they aren't very good. I'd say they're good for a nice little 100-hour visit, and then you leave. The minute that they start asking you for money, you just fucking leave. But until then, it's fun. You know, it's really fun. Genuinely fun. I think a good way to do it is spend $5. They'll give you like a mount for $5 usually. They'll give you like a little pack usually for like $5. $5 isn't a bad thing to spend on their game, because it's like, you know, that the even the voice actors, like, they had to be paid somehow, so it's like supporting the industry. I give them $5, you know, and I'll beat their game in like 3 or 4 days. My friend wanted me to play DDO, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting lost in DDO again. There's no fucking way. The running dungeons over and over and over and over again does not sound fun to me. That's what Neverwinter is, though. But the beautiful thing about Neverwinter is it's like the most mindless RPG I've ever played. It plays like Dungeon Siege 3, or what's another really mindless one like that, like Fable. It plays like Fable in the respect that you can just turn your mind off and follow the yellow glow road all the way through the whole game. There is no getting lost in it. And I really wish every game had that. I wish New World had that. Every game should have that. Like, you can't get lost in it. It's just like, you know, it always keeps you on point. It's always steering you to where you need to go next. And it's always some other crazy encampment a little deeper in the fucking war. And you're going deeper in the war, deeper in the city, deeper in the surrounding counties and villages and stuff. And yeah, like, you know, I wish this tree, oh yeah, this is a big mature tree. Yeah, chop this tree. That's a big tree. Yeah. That feels fucking awesome. I'm gonna chop that tree too. I'm gonna get all the big trees. Yeah. Probably really good wood. Let's see. 17 age wood. It's not that good. It's annoying. I'm out of proficiency pots, which I'm beginning to understand are really important, actually. That's technically what I should blow this $3,000 on, is a stack of fucking tier 5 proficiency boost pots, because they're actually really good. I didn't think about it, but I should just go buy. That's what this $3,000 should go towards, because that'll help me make even more money. Ah! Scroll lock. Ah. He looks so cool. I love the way he looks. Beautiful.
game if the leveling and character progression aspect was not so streamlined and acting as a tutorial. A tutorial to what? More of the same activity? If you're looking for a single-player RPG from the year 2013, dare I say it, there might be better options than Neverwinter. I think Dungeons & Dragons as well as the Warhammer universe are both stuck in this weird place, where any of the media or games or external pieces of content that come out from these franchises have never really lived up to the expectations of the fans. D&D was literally the baseline inspiration for MMORPGs and RPGs as a genre. And unfortunately for me, Neverwinter just doesn't live up to those expectations. I dream of one day in the future having an MMO set in these universes and with these characters and stories that can actually allow you to have a cohesive and immersive experience within that world. Can I recommend Neverwinter in the year 2024? Unfortunately, no. Usually in these videos, I try to find the positives in the games, and there are some positives. For example, it has a fun, fast-paced, and easy-to-understand combat system. The performance on PC is pretty stellar.
God damn it, I couldn't
It's
take two
multi-platform,
of them.
despite not being cross-playable, that still does amazing things for the active player base and community.
Light armor
But the
sucks.
negatives that I have outlined in this video far outweigh the small positives for me. And honestly, for games to remain competitive in this day and age, you're going to need to do something special. Something different. How this game manages to keep people engaged for such a long time is actually a mystery to me, and I can only assume that the sunken cost fallacy must be doing quite a bit of heavy lifting. Bear in mind, folks, my reviews are always just my opinion. Sometimes I receive quite a lot of backlash when I have less than positive things to say about the game, and I'm going to assume that this scenario will be no different. But it's very important to me that I remain fair and honest in my reviews and try to remove as much bias as possible in order to provide potential new players with my genuine experience so that they can come to their own conclusions. Neverwinter just isn't for me. I'm sure there's fun later on in the game after hundreds of hours of gameplay.
You liked
getting
SW
involved in
Tour,
building systems.
but you didn't like
It's not
Neverwinter
for
because
me.
you're
I
bad.
spent 50 to 100 hours in the game, and I never even got close to feeling like I was getting
Damn, I've spent
any
like
sort of progression.
300 or 400
But if you
in
love
Neverwinter.
Dungeons and Dragons and you are fascinated with the stories that exist in that world, then you might still find some value here. However, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who made it to the end of the video. Don't forget a like, a comment, a sub. Those things help a bunch. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider becoming a channel member or signing up for the Patreon. Links and join buttons down below. But I'll catch you all in the next one. Later.
I can hear you moving around out there. I'll kill you.
Hello everyone, this is Reddit Oscar.
Thank you, Reddit Oscar, for the excellent content from the stream. I'd like to sub to your channel.
Today I want to talk about what games I'm interested in that are coming out in 2024 or are possibly coming out in 2024. I don't vouch for the quality of these games, some of them might suck, but so far these are the ones that have caught my attention. Let's start with the DLC, the Elden Ring DLC, the Remnant 2 DLC, and the Lies of P DLC. 1 Souls DLC and 2 Souls-like DLCs. Regarding the Elden Ring expansion, my expectations for that content have become so large, so bloated, that any normal DLC simply will not do. A DLC like the kind From Software has given us before in Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 2 is just not good enough. Given how much time has passed, how long they've been working on it, and the fact that Elden Ring is their best-selling game of all time, it is not unreasonable to expect this DLC, this expansion, to be gigantic. Something similar in scale to what Monster Hunter does with its expansions, and I expect it will be priced along those lines as well. The thing about Elden Ring is that one of its biggest hooks is that there's always more. It's more and more. Every time you find a piece of the map gets bigger and you're like, wow, twice as big, 3 times as big as I thought it was going to be. You go down the Shifra Riverwell for the first time, realize that there's an entire expansive underground section, and again your mind is filled with wonder and possibilities. That's really a core loop of Elden Ring. You explore new territory, and then you start to get an idea of the limits of that territory, and then the rug is pulled out from under you, extending that feeling of wonder and possibilities as much as possible. A main element of Elden Ring is that it's big, big. And so it would be unusual for the DLC to shy away from that, especially given, again, how successful that was the first time, and the lengthy development time it's had up till now. Essentially, what I want from that DLC is more. More of everything, more and better. More bosses, better bosses, harder bosses, more weapons, more interesting weapons, more unique weapons, weapons that can serve as catalysts, more enemies, more unique environments, more and sizable areas to explore, including meaty, lengthy, well-designed legacy dungeons, and even a bunch of mini-dungeons to go along with them. I'd also like a lot of content and context to help people make sense of the existing lore. As I keep pointing out, the DLC for the Dark Souls games always reiterate the point made in the base game. It takes the themes in the base game and makes them easier to understand. A main point of these DLCs is to elucidate the base game's narrative, especially for Dark Souls 3, in that one Hidetaka Miyazaki even said as much. Now, another reason why I want this DLC out, apart from the enjoyment of the DLC, I'm sure it'll be great, I'm sure it'll be amazing, I hope to be happily surprised. But I also want it out just so they stop working on it, and we can start looking forward to their next projects. I'm very eager for news outside of just Elden Ring. Armored Core 6 proved that they are very capable at whatever they want to do. They can do whatever they want and it'll be great. So I would like Shadow of the Earth Tree to come out just so it stops hanging over me, looming, and we can start getting news for whatever else they've got. Now for the Lies of P DLC, I thoroughly enjoyed Lies of P when it came out. I have a review on my channel if you're interested in learning more about it. But basically, I think it's the best Souls-like, and I don't think it's close. I am typically not a fan of Souls-likes, and I dislike almost all of them. But Lies of P managed to overcome that bias I have, and they did that by being the closest to From Software in terms of quality. I have in fact seen a sizable portion of Souls fans that claim to like Lies of P more. Now that is a bridge too far for me, but I understand the sentiment. Lies of P had fantastic music, an excellent atmosphere, wonderful city environments that were a pleasure to wander around in, an excellent combat system, and good bosses to test your mastery of that
Good
system.
to hear.
Now, as for the DLC,
I don't need another Souls like I've got New World.
The DLC, the only thing we've seen are these 2 images. But still, I'm looking forward to it given how much I enjoy the base game. Now, as for Remnant 2, Remnant 2 is a 3-player co-op, third-person shooter Souls-like.
Yeah.
It was one of the best games to come out last year.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the best Souls-like for engaging in co-op multiplayer. And in that specific regard, I would say that it's even better than the actual Souls games, including Elden Ring. I also have a review for Remnant 2. It'll be linked in the description if you want to know more about it. As for the DLC, Remnant 2 had 3 planned DLCs. The first one, The Awakened King, came out last year, and the other 2 have yet to be announced. The way that Remnant 2 works, there are 3 different worlds that you visit while trying to complete the main story. There's the forest world, the artificial alien planet, and the last one is actually 2 worlds that have been unceremoniously crashed
Come on,
together.
man. Come on, man.
The game is meant to be replayed multiple times, and so each world has 2 different scenarios, and which one you're playing through is random. The different scenarios will have different stories and different bosses associated to them. And each world will have different dungeons and side dungeons in them. What dungeons and side dungeons are in your world in any given playthrough is also randomized.
Yeah.
What the DLCs do is introduce a 3rd scenario to each world. In the Awakened King DLC, they added a 3rd scenario to Loathsome. They also add a bunch of new equipment, new weapons, new loot, and new side and main dungeons to that world, to that location.
It was too Japanese and weird for me.
It introduces only the new content. So in the DLC
It also had
scenario,
some
the
stuff I did
scenario
not
will be
like.
new,
It felt
the bosses
kind
will
of
be
one
new,
and the same a little bit.
Side dungeons and main dungeons will be new.
It was
But then
okay.
after you do the DLC,
I'm not ashamed that I
everything
bought
will
it,
be
but I blew
integrated
60
into
on
the
it, and I did regret it
game's
later.
formula.
I was like, I wish I had bought it
So from
cheaper,
then
like
on,
30.
Loathsome will
But you
have
know,
one of
other than
3
that, I'm
possible
okay.
scenarios that
I'm
you
okay
can
with
get
buying it.
into
I think it was a good
instead
game.
of 2.
Definitely.
And the side and main dungeons that came in the DLC get integrated into the Loathsome side and main dungeon pool, making it possible for you to see that content whether or not you're doing the scenario introduced in the DLC. The DLC also introduces a new main class free-to-play. So it's pretty cool. After finishing the DLC content, it fleshes out and improves the base game overall. And since there's 2 more unannounced DLCs coming, I'm assuming it's going to do the exact same thing for the 2 other worlds that you visit in the game, which for me is ample reason to come back every time a DLC drops. Now these 2 DLCs are the only ones that are confirmed, but I distinctly remember seeing in a Reddit thread one of the developers saying that more content past these 3 DLC was a very real possibility. Alright, that's enough of the DLC. Let's move on to actual games that were announced, beginning with Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is the closest game to release, coming out on February 8th, 2024.
February 8th?
It is an up to 4-player co-op, third-person horde shooter. I didn't play the first one.
Horde shooter, huh?
But from the trailers, it seems to be this exaggerated Starship Troopers parody. Your home planet is called Super Earth. The trailers themselves are patriotic propaganda that frame the game's enemies as existential threats to freedom, and they use the word democracy as a synonym for explosions. There have been 2 broad enemy types that have been revealed. The first are the Terminids. They are described on the website as guided solely by an instinctive urge to reproduce, spread, and destroy democracy. The other enemy group is the Automatons, described as mindless, bloodthirsty robots coded for nothing but murder and socialist violence. Each enemy group has a variety of different units that you'll encounter on missions, with the Terminids having different types of insects, while the Automatons have different types of robots, as well as mechs, tanks, and dropships. The website boasts that there's a wide variety of overpowered weapons, that you'll unlock more of as you play the game. Apart from the weapons that you're holding, there's also stratagems. These are things that you can call from orbit that you summon with short button combinations. And stratagems can vary. They can be anything from airstrikes to stronger weapons. You can also call in more supplies this way, or even use defensive stratagems like shield generators and anti-personnel mines. I'm told there was also vehicles and mechs in the first game, but so far nothing's been revealed on that front, so we don't yet know if they're going to be in the second one. I'm assuming not, if they haven't shown it this close to release. Now the reason I am interested in Helldivers is apparently I really like shooting space insects, alien insects, because I don't actually play very many horde shooters. The only ones I really have liked are Deep Rock Galactic and Earth Defense Force 5. And in both of those
EDF 5
games,
is good.
You shoot and kill giant insects. And they're not just giant insects, they are specifically alien giant insects. So I guess this is just my thing. If I see an alien insect, I have to kill it.
Yeah, I mean...
Alright, the next game that I'm interested in
like Ender.
Helldivers is Unicorn Overlord. It is a tactical role-playing game published by Atlas and developed by Vanillaware. The combat is apparently inspired by the Tactics Ogre games, which is not a series I've played. According to the game's Wikipedia page, combat is split between movement of troops across large battlefields and combat when 2 units meet. All combat takes place in real time, but the player can pause to change their strategy and check on units. Combat parties are formed from multiple units with assigned character classes. with their arrangement on a grid influencing their abilities and combat efficiency. The plot has you following Prince Elaine, as he gathers an army across the continent's 5 kingdoms to reclaim his throne from the rogue General Balmor. Apparently the game is kind of open world, because during the exploration time, the player can guide Elaine across the overworld, enter towns, use services, and engage in story or optional battles. And apparently you can explore freely and tackle different events in different orders. Now I'm going to be real with you, I don't see anything in these trailers that really catches my attention and makes this an interesting game for me.
Then why
And
did
since
you
I've never
list
played
it?
any of the Tactic Ogre games that apparently inspired the combat here, I don't really even understand what I'm looking at. The reason that I'm interested is twofold. Number one, I like tactical JRPGs. I'm a fan of Fire Emblem, or rather, I'm a fan of some Fire Emblems, and it's been a while since I've played one that I like, so I'm hoping there's a chance that this might scratch that same itch. Now the second and most important reason is listed on their website. From the masterminds that brought you 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, and Odin Sphere, Atlas and Vanillaware present the rebirth of tactical fantasy RPG. Unicorn Overlord combines the timeless tactical RPG genre.
You're already like
with
digging through
overworld
the barrel,
exploration
huh?
and innovative battle systems for a unique epic fantasy experience in the iconic Vanillaware style. So basically, what's written in these sentences, that's
The rest of it, you lost me. Sorry. I mean, yeah, there's like other stuff coming, but yeah, the other half of it I already know, and I'm done with this.
Neverwinter, a free-to-play action.
Take me back to the main page, and let's hear something else. Rockstar is suing Remedy for some reason. Massive stimulus check deadline shortly. Business and child tax credit. Massive stimulus check deadline.
Hey, a lot of folks are wondering what the late...
Thank you. Who is this? This is... I can't see it with the current zoom. It's Meet Kevin. Okay.
This is on this $78 billion deal. Is this actually going to delay the government shutdown? And what's in it for that $78 billion deal for you? Well, there's a lot. First and foremost, if you have not yet applied for the employee retention tax credit, it might be going away way sooner than expected. So basically, if you think you're eligible and you want some free money, you might want to consider applying probably before January 31st. Now, at the moment, the IRS has stopped processing these. They're on a tentative pause as they investigate fraud in the employee retention tax credit. So, point is, I don't know if even at this point you'll still be able to get in, but you probably nearly definitely won't be able to get in after January 31st if this new $78 billion deal goes through. So let me just quickly catch you up with the employee retention tax credit, since there are probably many of you who are business owners here. And if you're not, it's just worth knowing about this before we get to talking about the child tax credit and the other updates. If you are a business that had payroll in 2020 and 2021, you're eligible for a tax credit if you meet one of 3 conditions. Initially, the conditions had to do with you showing a decline in income in any part of 2020 itself or the first 3 quarters of 2021. However, they loosened that, and so now those 2 conditions expanded to a 3rd condition that is either 2020 or the first 3 quarters of 2021. They expanded that to basically say, or your business was shut down during 2020 or the first 3 quarters of 2021, which basically kind of made everybody be like, I was subject to the shutdown. So pretty much every person who has payroll has been getting beat up by companies that are basically calling you up going, hey, you want to get some free tax credit? Give us 50% of the tax credit. We'll help you get the tax credit. And if you get it, you just give us 50% as part of us getting that for you, because it's money you didn't even know you were potentially eligible for, right? So there are a lot of companies doing that. And it's not that hard to apply for it. I mean, quite frankly, you could probably just Google the IRS form by typing in employee retention tax credit with the word or letters the and the S. And then, well, yeah, no kidding. Surprise, surprise. You can get the whole IRS forms and guides on exactly how to fill out the form and knock this out. But the point is, in 2021, this actually had a pretty big number attached to it. You were able to get up to 70% of employees' qualified wages, up to $28,000 per employee, in 2021, which is wild because that means if you paid an employee, a qualifying employee, let's see, if you paid them $40,000 a year or more, you could get 28 grand towards their payroll in 2021 per employee. Okay, that's a lot of potential money. Again, go to the employee retention tax credit form at the IRS directly, and you could see the eligibility checklists they have. You could see the forms for all you have to do is Google IRS employee retention.
It was interesting, but it doesn't apply to me. Lone Vault Wanderer. I like Lone Vault Wanderer. Thank you for the extra content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel. I'm going to have some caffeine now. I'll be right back. I'm going to try and stay up all day. It's a beautiful storm. I think it's better that I'm awake today. I'll stay up. Okay, sorry about that, guys. There, give me that. Okay, how's Eve? Eve is not mining.
Alrighty fam, for some reason today, a bunch of Xbox news and rumors decided to drop, and I've been spending a lot of my time passing through everything, trying to make sense of it all, and in particular, attempting to separate fact from fiction. Obviously, that's easier said than done when it comes to the games industry. You just don't know what you can trust out there, especially when it comes to anything Xbox related. But I believe I am about ready to make today's video, though you can sense the hesitation in my voice. Regardless, today we're going to be talking about apparently Final Fantasy VII Remake launching on the Xbox. We'll be covering the news that unfortunately there won't be any shadow drops at this week's upcoming Xbox Developer Direct event. We'll be covering the rumors surrounding Indiana Jones' supposed release date, and finally we'll be covering the Stalker 2 situation. So if you enjoy this video, if it helps, please like it. I would really appreciate it.
A lot of good games.
With the
Oh no, you did it to me again. You popped me back like 6 videos. No, 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 no. Oh my god.
Bolster their relationship with the company. And in an interview with IGN last year, I'll link it in the description below, Phil Spencer said the following, quote, "So you'll hear more. I'm not going to push them. They're going to have to find their own rhythm. But having them make a commitment to Xbox was really important both for me, and I've heard it from the community, to the community as well. And 14 was more of a commitment," end quote. Obviously there he's referring to Final Fantasy 14 that's going to be coming to the Xbox. In fact, today, Xbox kind of released something in regards to the open beta, and they pulled it because the date was wrong. But yes, that's going to be coming to Xbox. But obviously at that meeting, it's clear they would have talked about other games. It wouldn't have just been about Final Fantasy XIV.
Weird. This
and if I was a betting man,
went to
which I'm not,
Xbox.
but if I was a betting man, I would almost guarantee they also talked about Final Fantasy Remake in that meeting as well. Now, is there anything more concrete that we can go off of? Not really, but we've got some leaks and rumors to talk about. So recently, Jez Corden, if you don't know him, he's a really well-renowned journalist. He covers a lot of insider information when it comes to the games industry, especially Xbox stuff. Recently, in an episode of the Xbox 2 podcast, I'll link that in the description below, Jez said the following, quote, "I've got evidence tentatively that there are discussions about Final Fantasy VII for Xbox." So, he does say tentatively, he doesn't really know, he's seeing certain things here and there, and I've spoken to Jez about this kind of stuff in the past. He likes to get more like different sources and actual concrete stuff before he makes a full article about it. So to me, this suggests that he's a little bit more hesitant about this, like it's just discussions at this stage. And as I mentioned, of course they would have discussed it when Phil Spencer literally flew to Japan to see them, right? So there's no doubt there's been discussions, but whether it's actually happening, who really knows? We're still getting Final Fantasy XIV as well, and Jez suspects a little bit that, let's say Final Fantasy VII Remake was coming to the Xbox, they wouldn't want to announce it anytime soon, because obviously this year, a big focus for Square Enix is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? And Jez suspects they don't want to take away from the shine and the intention of that game, especially for PlayStation's sake, because it is going to be a timed exclusive. So expect that PC release sometime after that. But what about Xbox 2? If we get the remake, maybe we get Rebirth. Who really knows? Let me know what you think in the comments below. But let's talk about the second news that, unfortunately, and this is the bad news today, there won't be any shadow drops at this week's Xbox Developer Direct event. So there was an Xbox Wire article today, I'll link it in the description below. It is entitled, How to Watch the Xbox Developer Direct 2024 on Thursday, January 18. By the way, I'm going to be streaming it, so keep it locked to this channel. I'll schedule a video sometime tomorrow so you can see when the live stream will go live. But all the way at the bottom of that article, there is a Q&A, and Xbox asked itself essentially the following. When will the games in the show be released? And the answer, all the games in this year's Developer Direct will be arriving later, with more details to be shared in the program. So what they're saying here is that all the games, literally all the games, you know, that are going to be shown at the Developer Direct are going to be releasing at some stage later. They're trying to be essentially firm that there aren't going to be any shadow drops whatsoever. And I believe Xbox is trying to combat a lot of the rumors and leaks that I covered in my recent video about it, suggesting that Xbox was planning another shadow drop similar to Hi-Fi Rush of last year. Now, does that kind of discount or kind of ruin the credibility of those rumors and of those supposed leaks? Depends how you take it. Like, maybe they were planning it and decided to change their mind, or maybe there just wasn't any shadow drops whatsoever and people were kind of talking out their ass. Believe what you want, but at least it's good to have confirmation there won't be any shadow drops whatsoever. However, this doesn't mean there won't be any surprises, and I'll talk about a rumor in a second when it comes to surprises. But they're not saying these are the only games we're talking about. 3,350. The games that we do talk about will be releasing later or arriving later, right? So there is still a possibility, there is still a chance that there will be some sort of surprise announcement at the Developer Direct. However, it might not be a major game, and let's get to that right now. So first of all, Insider Gaming, in the midst of all of this news, released an article today, and they talked about two things. One, the Developer Direct event, and also two, rumors surrounding the release date of Indiana Jones. Let's talk about the Developer Direct stuff first, because we were just talking about it. So, in that article, they say the following, quote, "One thing Insider Gaming sources have mentioned, however, is a fifth game being shown during the show. That said, it's not expected to be a major game." So, as I mentioned, there is a chance for a surprise announcement during the Developer Direct, and Insider Gaming apparently has sources confirming that. So whether you want to believe them or not, I don't know, take them with a grain of salt. But are we gonna be surprised if there's a surprise? Of course not. Like, I reckon Xbox probably has something up their sleeve. It was always going to be hard for that to be a shadow drop. As I mentioned in that previous video, shadow drops are very, very hard to do. Lots of planning, lots of coordination, lots of effort to make sure it doesn't get leaked. But surprises are much, much easier. They're still hard, especially for Xbox that gets leaked all the time. But they're a little bit easier, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was a surprise at the Developer Direct. And Insider Gaming seems to think so with their sources. So let's see if it actually happens. but they do say that it's not expected to be a major game. Now, maybe that means it's going to be like an existing game on another platform that's coming to the Xbox. Maybe it's like a smaller game, an indie style game, maybe even a AA game. I don't know, but even if it's not a major game, that's still a big deal to me. If it's a genuine surprise that no one knew about and no one even kind of speculated or had rumors or leaks about, then to me, that's a major event in any event. So let's see what happens. But now let's talk about Indiana Jones. So in that same article, Insider Gaming also said the following, quote, while the company didn't specifically state it, Insider Gaming sources have said that the current plan is for the Indiana Jones game to be released later this year. So obviously we're seeing Indiana Jones in the Developer Direct event this week. I think it's like 10 minutes of gameplay or so. But Xbox never specifically said when the game is releasing, whether it's this year or next year. I believe either they're keeping the cards close to their chest because they don't know when the game is going to be ready. There's every chance of that. Or two, they actually want to save it for the Developer Direct event. They're going to have a big release date announcement right at the end of the show.
Docking request accepted.
Currently, and I could be wrong, I'm leaning towards the game actually being pushed back to next year. I just based on everything, I just can't believe that it's going to come out this year. But I reckon I'm going to be proven wrong, especially if Insider Gaming sources are actually to be believed. And Xbox is clearly very bullish on the game. Maybe Machine Games is ready to release the game this year. But I just wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be delayed. Let's see. But talking about delays, let's talk about Stalker 2. So Stalker 2 we know is an exclusive, but unfortunately today, GSC Game World, the developer, released a new trailer today that was entitled Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl Final Release Date Announcement. They use that term very explicitly, final, because we've had many release dates for Stalker 2 in the past. Maybe not specific release dates, but we've had a lot of release windows. But yes, they released their trailer today, and it said in that trailer the game is going to be finally released on the 5th of September this year, which is obviously a bit of a delay. We knew the game was going to be coming out before roughly Q1 of this year, and they seem to be pretty firm on that release date. But turns out they're going to have to delay it a little bit more. They also explain why they did it, and I'll talk about that in a second. But the good news for you Xbox fans is that it's going to be a day one release on Game Pass. So on September 5th, you're going to be able to play Stalker 2 on Game Pass, which is awesome. The game is looking great, and I reckon if you have the ability, try and play the original Stalker games on the PC. But yeah, it's still a little bit of a bummer that it's going to be delayed. I was looking forward to a Q1 release, even if it was like late Q1 in March. So let's see what they had to say about the delay. So they tweeted out the following today, quote, on the technical side of things, the game needs more time. Throughout the frankly challenging development process, I'll talk about that in a second, we understood the time was of the team's main essence. Seeing the scope of polishing and understanding that we can't push your patience too much, we were absolutely dedicated to releasing the game in Q1 2024, and we worked extra hard to meet the release window. That, however, doesn't change the fact that at the beginning of this year, we still witnessed a certain amount of technical imperfections that hold Stalker 2 below the expected standards for the final experience our fans are waiting for. Yep. The final release date for Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl is now September 5, 2024. So I'm absolutely not holding this against GSC because I think I talked about it a little bit in my recent video. This game has been through absolute development hell. Like the company went bust, it then reformed, it was a release date was announced, and then obviously COVID was a thing, and then you had Russians invasion of Ukraine, and they were based in Ukraine, and they had to move their headquarters to a different country. They've been through everything, absolute and utter hell. Troopers. And I said I was surprised this game was actually going to release at all. Like, I think a lot of other people in that situation probably would have just called it, because how else do you progress through all of that? But apparently GSC has managed to do that, and the game, hopefully, they do say final release date, but hopefully the game is going to be releasing September 5th this year. I really hope for their sake that it's a huge success. To develop a game for that long, I don't know what their funding situation is like. It costs a lot of money. The amount of money that would have been spent on the extra dev time and resources just is astronomical. I couldn't even estimate how many millions of dollars more Stalker 2 would have cost as a result. So for their sake, I hope it's a resounding success, but we will only be able to find out in September of this year. But anyways, everyone, let me know what you think about all today's Xbox news in the comments below. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourselves, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lone Wanderer, for the excellent content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel. Uh,
A common reoccurring thing you'll hear from old
Thank
people
you,
is the
Dagger, for the excellent content from a stream. I've liked and sub to your channel.
constant comparisons of what we have now to what they had in their day. The new generation is somehow worse, the cars aren't built as well, the food isn't made as well, the movies just suck now. But to a modern generation, it's always quite the opposite. You look at the shit that existed before you were born, and it's always just
It
shocking
sucked.
people even enjoyed
Yeah.
being alive back then. This
Yep.
phenomenon is quite the debate within the gaming community. Are games just not made with the same heart they used to, or maybe I'm just too old to enjoy them now? I personally think there's a lot of merit to both of these statements, and to be honest, I'm sure if you clicked on this video, you do too. I think it's time we all take an objective look at gaming without the lens of nostalgia to figure out why gaming just doesn't feel the same anymore. Now, I think to start dissecting this question, it's more important to define the overarching history of gaming in general. Now, I've made this pretty little timeline for all of us to look at here, and I'd separate gaming into two distinct eras, the pre-online era and then the modern online era. Sorry to be over-explanative, but this marks the point where online multiplayer rose to prominence and really became the main genre of gaming, and while there technically was some online capabilities with the PS2, it really rose to prominence with the 7th generation of consoles, or the PS3 and Xbox 360. Now, within each of these eras, I've labeled out some notable points on the timeline. The 3rd generation consoles really marked the mainline home console era, then the PS1 and N64 took it to the next level, then of course the launch of the PS2 and GameCube, and then into the modern era. 2005 marked the release of the PS3 and 360, then around 2012 we got the PS4 and Xbox One, and then as of the time this video is being made, the most recent consoles are the PS5 and Series X. The reason I feel it important to really label this out is mainly just to give you some visual representation, but also really the shift in gaming as a whole. Now, it's not all of them, but I've put most of the best-selling games of each year on here, and I'm sure you can see the gradual changes just from a glance. There is a huge distinction of when Call of Duty rose to prominence and dominates the best-selling lists every year. But another reason I'm giving you this timeline is because I feel it's important to sort of mark where we all land on it specifically, and something I feel very lucky about is that within this timeline I am in an incredibly unique position. I was born quite literally smack dab right in the middle of this timeline, and naturally by the time that I was, say, coherent enough to play a video game, it would make sense that chronologically I would be playing a PS4 or Xbox One, but thankfully for me, I grew up poor as fuck. All I had to play until I was maybe 12 or 13 were just retro games all the way up from the NES to the PS2 and everything in between. And as a result, I've gotten to play almost every single home console ever. Now, I'm going to take a pretty good guess that most of you watching this started at one of 3 different points. Number 1, your childhood had a PS2 or N64, making you probably around 30 or so. There are those of you who grew up with a PS2, which would make you probably anywhere from 24 to 30. Then there's my generation who had a PS3 and 360, which makes you anywhere from 16 to 25. But even though all of these console eras are so different, the common thread is that gaming for most people just doesn't feel the same anymore, so I decided to ask my friends why. The question I specifically decided to ask was, does gaming feel the same to you? And if not, when did it change and why? And before I dive into their answers and our conversations as a whole, I think it's more importantly to ask you that. After this video goes out, I want you guys to comment down below how old you are, what console you grew up with, and when you think gaming changed the most. Now, to get this started with my first friend who comes from an older generation who I thought would offer some pretty unique insight. Yeah, so why do you think gaming has changed and when do you think it happened?
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit. I'm horny as fuck, man. I'm a freak, man. Like, for real.
Now, I really didn't get anything out of that conversation, and I contacted the authorities, so do with that what you will. Now, after that, I decided to go to people who were just a touch older than me, and I contacted my friend Chase. He's an incredibly good friend of mine who grew up with the PS2 era of games and is one of the nastiest Gears of War players I have ever seen in my entire life.
I think gaming's always been changing, like from the beginning. And I'm old enough now that I got to see some of like the more notable ones. Like it seems like now like a lot of the changes that happen are more incremental. It was probably slower over time that change happened, where I felt less and less like I loved playing video games, you know. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it had to do with it was like an escape from like growing up. I'm like, man, I hate school, right? Like, I want to go home and like get to play games with my friends. And at that time in my life, like that was definitely like a nice, you know, growing up, it was just a nice like a break from everything else.
Now, Chase made a lot of really good points that I never really stopped to consider, but it's fair to say his decision is relatively split. Now, let's talk about my generation that grew up with the PS3 and 360s in their homes, and let me answer this question firsthand. Gaming, for me, stopped feeling the same in the last 2 or 3 years. Once I started having a lot of responsibility and came to terms with the fact that I really wasn't capable of being a pro at any game I played, it just really lost the appeal. Gaming for the sake of getting better really has just sort of lost a good percentage of its value, and now to me it's just
Not
kind
to
of
me,
a
it
hobby.
hasn't.
But games that feel nostalgic to me really seem to cap
Hobby.
a little into the PS3 generation, but that's just my research. Let's look into a bit more credible source. Reddit. Now, usually I do hate going into the
Reddit.
purgatory that really is Reddit, but I did find one thread on here that I think provides a lot of very valuable input. Now, our poster here used to play a lot of video games, but has really struggled recently to find them as appealing. I used to play a ton of video games before, and they slapped. I used to play them all day and have so much fun, but now for a few months, I've noticed that gaming just isn't as fun anymore. Maybe it's because I have a low-end PC and don't have many options, but I still feel like it would be even if I had a higher-end one. Does anyone know why this is happening? More importantly though, the responses are a really good place to start unraveling this mystery. Sure, you haven't lost sight of why you play video games? I feel like in the age of live service yada yada that gaming has become, it's far too easy to lose sight of why. You didn't play Skyrim because you wanted to get it 100% or to be max level, you played it for fun. You're old as fuck and your cell phone programmed you for instant gratification. Your interests are changing. Try a new hobby. All of these responses are worded in different ways, but they actually boil down to a core reason that I want to dive into. Reason 1, you're playing games for a different reason. Reason 2, the world around you has changed. Reason 3, the games themselves have changed. Reason 4, you've changed. Reason 5, mental illness. Let's dive into each of these individually and hopefully somewhere along the way find a logical answer. Reason 1, you're gaming for the wrong reasons. If you feel that games aren't the same for you anymore, I want to ask you why you played games as a kid. Did you even think about why you were doing it back then, or was it just something you did to have fun? Nowadays, when you play games or start up old ones, be honest with me, is it for the same reason, or is it for a far more driven, specific goal or endgame? I can tell you as a kid, I had absolutely no desire to max out an account or grind anything.
love this song.
I just wanted to dick around and have fun. For me, it was...
Me too. I've never been like that. I've never been completionist. I don't give a fuck. I'm as liable to go do something different the next day as I am to keep doing the same thing. I don't know what it is. If something looks familiar, then something is wrong. I should start saving this ore. I should not sell it to them anymore. I should just stack it up for months and months and months and use it for production. I don't know. I suppose I should look around for an ice field now. Oops. Chanel popped. So we'll switch up. Okay, perfect. And the drone. Okay, perfect. We got it all set. Let's go undock. Go to Shenown. And okay, let's just go.
Autopilot engaged.
Make some more money.
Nowadays, when you play
Warping
games,
to
is it to have
Stargate.
fun, or is it to get better
Warp
and more
drive
importantly
active.
than others, which sure can be fun, but also equally frustrating? When playing a game where victory is the sole objective, you can sometimes lose sight of why you're playing to begin with. The games just aren't relaxing at that point anymore.
There's this point in like 2015 where I wasn't willing to play games that I didn't find enriching or fun anymore. I didn't stop playing racing games. I stopped playing Grand Theft Auto. I stopped playing all the single player games pretty much. You know, I stopped worshipping Souls-likes as much and sort of like started well, I like Souls-likes, but I mean I stopped playing From Software games as much as I used to. I used to play Dark Souls Remastered, and I'm sorry, Dark Souls, just the original Dark Souls Prepare to Die.
Approaching Stargate.
For just years. I was just playing Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne. I used to play Bloodborne a lot. Yeah, I kind of quit Overwatch. I'm sorry, no, I didn't quit Overwatch. It took me a while to quit Overwatch. It took me like, I still play Overwatch. I didn't quit Overwatch, but I mean, like I stopped playing it competitive. I stopped doing competitive, and I was on my way up to Grandmaster, you know. But I mean, it takes so much dedication and competitive. It's insane. You have to keep the same 6-man. You got to deal with their social bullshit, and you have to like be there every day. And I was trying on PlayStation of all places too. But I mean, it was a serious scene. That was probably the place to do it, honestly. And so there's this point where I was like, if I don't feel like it's either making me a better gamer or making me a stronger RPG player or making me a richer RPG player, I don't want to mess with it. I look at Counter-Strike 2 and I'm like, what could that possibly bring me that I don't already know, because I spent like 6 years on 1.6 from the age of like 13 until I was like 19. I played so much Counter-Strike, and I just don't see what's there for me anymore. I don't see what I can learn from that game anymore. I feel that way about Fortnite. I played like 3 solid years of Fortnite, and I just don't really feel like I need to play Fortnite anymore. I don't really feel like I need to play Overwatch anymore. I am changing, and I feel like I'm giving up on a lot of things that I used to use as crutches, and I'm starting to use old things that I didn't use as crutches as much, like now. And I'm looking at it differently. Like, I want to play them all in the background. And if they're long and slow and deliberate and deep and like, honestly, it's depth. I know what it is. It's depth. The game has to have depth. I would say New World has the most depth of an RPG I've played recently. It's just got the most. EVE Online got the most depth I can think of. Final Fantasy XI has the most depth I can think of. Rust has the most depth I can think of. Normally I would play Minecraft if I didn't have Rust, I think. Minecraft would be one. I think Stardew Valley qualifies. I think... like WoW to a lesser degree, much lesser degree qualifies, and I think Final Fantasy 14 qualifies, but I wouldn't play 14. 14's got enough content. I'm talking about like enough content to keep you busy forever. It's got so much depth and shit to learn. Like the materia system in 14, I will admit, is worth a nice 1,000-hour round. In I know because I did it. The materia system in 14 is worth a 1,000-hour round in Palace of the Dead, and I did that. I did that on PlayStation 4 way back, 2018, something like that, 2017. I played a lot of Final Fantasy 14 on the console. And on PlayStation, and I primarily did Palace of the Dead because it was an easy way to get money, XP, levels, and materia. It was all procedurally generated, and I loved the music. The music was really special. Actually, I want to hear the soundtrack right now, but I mean, I want to hear this video too. I don't know why you can't buy that, but we're gonna get off weapons and look for armor here. Yeah, let's see how much armor frags this stuff gets me, because this will be enough, just enough. It costs like 200 gold, but that's alright, and I got some infused. It's a fairly cheap thing to break the greens and blues for 5G, especially if their eye level's high. Look, 338 are repair points. I want to repair all of my gear because I'm half broke. And so that's started repair all. That took 207 repair parts. Now, I want to look at armor. I want to look at repair. These master repair kits, that's the tier 5 one. Is there any for sale? What do they cost? They're $9.69. That's it. Any tier 5 items. So 16 of these is like, oh, I don't know, 160 gold or something. So this is worth it, kind of, but worth it more from like a buy order perspective. Yeah, there's a much better deal. So if I put like an order for 100 of these at 335, that will allow me to repair my armor like, I don't know, what is that? Like, how many slots do I have? It's a lot. It's like 20 each time. So yeah, so this will full repair me like 5 times. Which is better than what I've been paying. So yeah, and we're gonna upcharge it. So we outbid these people. And I do want about 100 master repair kits because running out sucks. I want to carry like 30 with me wherever I go and lock them and keep them on me because, like, man, repair is starting to be a nightmare. It's so expensive. It's like 300 gold and 300 fucking artifact or whatever repair parts every single time. It's starting to really stack up. I just blew 3,000 gold like it was nothing, like it was going out of style. 10 seconds I blew it. No problem, just gone. That's what she said. Like fucking right, the Mount Vittles were just off the hook expensive, but I don't care. I want the speed now. I didn't really understand how important that was. And so now we come over here and we put that on. That's got to go on my bar, but I can't because the stupid horse thing's open. There. That's got to go on my bar. There we go. And then, and I bought a whole bunch more Vittle. I think I bought a buy order for Vittles and stuff. I could look at buy orders that I currently have and cancel them. I want to look how many market orders I actually have. Wait, how many of those did you eat? Was it just 3? Yeah, it was 3. She can't eat any more, so... There, that goes off, and I'm going to put the water back on my inventory. Where did the water go? Damn it. No, where'd you put it? Where did you put it? Where did you put it? Where did you put it? I can't see it. I can't see it. The water, where did it go? The water, where did you put it? It's like here somewhere, but I do not see. I do not see. Where's the water? Oh, it's away. It's away. It's on the other kit. So now if I want it again, I have to go blah. There we go. I understand it a little bit better now. So okay, so yeah, get that going. Taking a look at sheet music was something else I wanted to do. So let's take a look at that. What is that? That's like, yeah, sheet music and stuff. I don't know where that is, but I think it's like down here, yeah. For the guitar. Yeah, shit is cheap, yeah. Like I want to see available, right? Stacks of it. Yep. How are you today? For 3 gold a piece. So for 300 gold, I could get a lot of those, but I want to go cheaper. You got a lot of them. Yeah, anybody selling these for unreasonably cheap? Anybody at all? No? There's 24 for 100. Which is a good amount of skill up, yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I want to see price-wise how low it goes. 80 cents a piece, and then, yep, here, this is what I'm looking for. Yeah, 23 gold. Give me a whole fuck ton of these. I want to see a lot. Yeah, see, show me a big stack of them. There, 36. Take them. Sold. Man, that falls a lot, huh? 77 Sound of Bells. That was a little expensive. But whatever. I don't think they weigh much, right? No, they don't weigh anything at all. So yes, so now we go and we're gonna do some processing. I have to make more power for vials. Here, infused artifact fragments is good. Yeah, we'll take wood. Yeah, absolutely. Glittering ebony is good, yeah.
Everything's stressful, and as an adult, additional layers of stress that just seem unnecessary are inevitably going to dissuade you from picking up that controller. This is where a bunch of recent statistics might be a bit eye-opening for you. Currently in the US, over 60% of the population are considered gamers. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that mobile gamers do make up a large percentage of that. The average age of a gamer is now 35.
Wait, you burn fire essence on that?
Half of the gamers in
I mean,
the
what
States
else?
are
Oh
above
god,
35,
do not burn
which is pretty crazy
fire
information
essences
across
on
this, to be
that.
honest. The gaming industry
Jesus
is currently
Christ,
evaluated
man.
to be worth $350 billion, expected to breach the $500 billion mark in the next few years. Newzoo has laid out this fantastic little chart segmenting all of the gamers into 9 distinct categories. Now, using these categories, it would indicate that of the 212 million US players, 91 million of them exclusively play mobile games or don't play major consoles.
Wow, so it's not even that big of a thing. I always thought gaming was like, yeah, like statistically, there's a lot of gamers on the planet, but I never really thought how many of them were cell phone players. My mother is a cell phone gamer, you know? Like, dude, I don't know.
only play games on consoles and PCs. Now here's where the age comes back in. Out of all of the gamers in the US, legit only 23% of gamers are below 18. Now why is this important? Well, the only people outside of pros with enough time to get seriously good and stay good at 90% of competitive games are below 18. The other 77% of gamers probably have jobs and families. So let's take our total 57% of gamers who enjoy playing console games and then take 23% of that and we're left with a grand total of 11% of gamers. These are the people who like the games but also have the time to get good at them. Once you hit a certain age, playing games to be a competitive player just might not be worth it. Furthermore, you might start finding that games are only fun for those at the top specifically. A recent study made by a researcher at the University of Oxford did an experiment to determine what the connection was between frustration and gaming, if there was any to begin with.
Yeah, like it seems like a lot of people that I meet are unhappy with gaming, and I'm like, I don't know, this is the best it's ever been, and I wonder if I'm a lot like I'm somehow more happy than a lot of them. I think this is the best it's ever been. Like I'm unhappy when they don't do quality of life correctly, but I mean I don't care. You know that like I don't know. I don't like. I'm sorry. I care, but it's like I don't care. There's always another different game to play. There's always some other game to play. I get really angry that Rust sucks so much, but I mean, there's always like another game to play, you know?
Warp drive active.
They first took in a collection of college students and had them
Rust does not
dip their
suck.
hands in a
I'm
bowl of
kidding.
ice water for a set amount of time. Now, what they told the college students
I love
was
Rust
that the
now.
previous contestant had
Rust is so
simply-
much better now than it was for me when I was in a clan, because it's like I need it on my own terms. It had to be like that. I needed it to be on my own terms. It had to be like it just has to be like that. See, some of this does have to be Earth essences and stuff for powerful encumbrance. What does that do? Large amount for a short time. Yeah, I want to carry those around. Shit, I'll burn the essences for that. Seems like it actually pays pretty good XP. But can we get cheaper? Can we go like yeah? Can we go like shock bulb stem and blood spore bloom? And let's turn off owned and see what else I can do. You can only do these, huh? So earth essences. It's an earth essence potion, but yeah, those I'm gonna carry with me. I'm gonna lock them. I'm gonna keep them with me. Those things are probably really good for getting like warping out. Yeah. Yeah, I want to lock you. Yeah. No. Well, yeah. I want to lock you, but you won't let me lock you. No. Oh, come on. Whatever. Okay, well, it's fine. I'm going to carry them with me, those gray ones. I'm going to remember that. Oh, I do. I have strong encumbrance potions now. How much do they weigh? They weigh 2 pounds. This weighs like 4 pounds, those seven ones. Maybe I should, like, rethink my... Nice, Arcana went up. I should rethink my inventory. But, here we are at the ice glacier. In space, and we're going to make some money. Sucking on some ice. Chewing some rocks. I'm the only one here. How is that possible? Wait, what? There's dead bodies here. Wait, did you pick up all that stuff? Wait, did you pick up the mobile tractor unit? You did, and the 21 million. Yeah, I got 21 million in here. Nice. Yes, you did. Okay, I was like, wait, did you pick it up? Yeah, I was like, yeah, you did. Okay, let's make some ice money. Hells yeah, sounds good to me. So cold as ice,
amount of
bitch.
time they had to hold their hand in. After this, they played a game with varying levels of violence, and then finally a game of Tetris. Half of the students got a very easy version of Tetris, and the other half got a far more difficult version. Then, at the end of this, the students were asked to set the time for the next student to hold their hands in the ice for, and the results are fucking fascinating. There was absolutely no difference in students who had been exposed to different levels of violence, but the students who had played the far more frustrating version of Tetris on average made the next student hold their hand in water for an additional 10 seconds. The reason I'm bringing this up is that video games are taken far too seriously as more than just a way of having fun, then let's be real here, you're gonna get frustrated and increasingly aggressive and potentially sadistic. So potentially start reconsidering your approach to the medium as a whole. But admittedly, the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is exactly what I've fallen into many times. I am an incredibly competitive person in literally anything I get into, and